conversations.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. I think they are coming into the courtroom, and they are.
Conversations with Sergeant Vigil when he was being questioned at Santa Fe Police Department. Others are clearly
they're in there. All right, let's see.
Others just
part of a what?
A defense scheme. So maybe a tactic or something that he is, saying that he is actually saying. So he knows that
Not a defense scheme.
I think there's a sign at the jail that says that there is the warning at the very beginning, and so one of those conversations or one of those things is him actually saying, for whoever's listening, this is what happened. There were some complaints about what could be heard in the background. Mr. Roybal from our office, he actually did his best to remove any of that background noise during the editing of those conversations down to the relevant seconds or minutes in some of those cases. And so really it sounds as if the fear is purely speculative at this point, Your Honor, that a lot of that fear from defense is that you can hear a jail cell close or anything like that. You can't. And honestly, Judge, there's a little bit of background noise. I feel that when listening to it, there's actually more background noise coming from Linda Montoya's side of the conversation than from the defendants. So, Judge, they are relevant. The foundation's been laid. Just a quick aside on some case law. I don't have the number. I can look that up very, very quickly, but it was actually State of New Mexico versus Andrew Romero, which is an extremely high profile case out of Sandoval County. Tried by now a district court judge in Albuquerque and one of the premier defense attorneys in the state, Mr. Clark. And in that case, on appeal, they talked quite a bit about some of those jail calls. The relevance was very clear, but the Supreme Court actually made a comment about some of the foundations when laying that, and it simply said, judges, that it was a particularly low bar because it is just voice recognition. That's what it comes down to, and the state has satisfied that foundation. I think looking at the
Congratulations,
edits that the state has provided, they are all relevant. There is nothing that is unfairly prejudicial in there. Of course, there is going to be prejudicial material in there, Judge. That's called evidence, and it is, I think, the duty to sort of balance that, looking at the probative value versus the unfair prejudice, Judge. And the state has actually done with the number of hours, and there are hundreds of hours of jail phone calls that the state has listened to and edited down to essentially a little over 11 minutes. The state has really taken upon itself to make sure that there is nothing unfairly prejudicial in there, that it is just relevant evidence that the state really does feel that we are entitled to introduce in trial. Thank you.
On behalf of Mr. Apodaca.
And Judge, I don't want to keep honing in on the probative and prejudicial and basic rules of evidence here, but I mean, jail calls, we worked very hard, first of all, to dress them up. It's a jail call between Mr. Apodaca and his mom. Okay, that right there is going to raise up a red flag. Why would Ms. Montoya be recording her own son? Then we're also dealing with, I mean, the recording itself, where you can hear background noise, you can hear just a bunch of people in the background talking. I mean, I understand we listen to a lot more jail calls than the average person, but it still sounds like a jail call when and I think a common person would believe that these are in fact jail calls when they hear all the background noise and all that. As I have proposed to the court, I think the best resolution here, if we are going to introduce these, is to simply get these into the detective, to say that the detective can testify to that these statements were made between Ms. Montoya and her son. We can leave it at that. But if we go into the calls, if they hear that, I think there's a strong likelihood that the jury will believe that these are jail calls, and it will negate everything that we've done.
Is there a law that prohibits them from knowing that? I understand your concern is that they might use that information to form some kind of opinion about your client, but this jury has already seen him taken into custody on the day of the incident. So they've already seen that video. They know he was
But
in
he was
police custody.
possibly in jail.
So following down that road, that thread,
Well, he was in police custody, but to hold somebody is if they believe that he's been then sent to the jail, and then they could assume that he's been in jail pending this trial, and they'll think that, there was I don't know if they know the terms of art, preventative detention and all that, as far as New Mexico law is concerned, but they may then assume that he has been in custody pending trial since 2022 because somebody believed that he was a danger to the community. And that's my concern. I think that is going to, and then that goes into the rules of evidence regarding probative.
Well, in my opinion, he definitely a danger to young girls.
Judicial value, 402, 403, all of that. We're pulling up exact law right now in regards to knowing whether a defendant is in custody. But the whole purpose of this is to, I understand that the state wants to get in certain evidence. And I don't think that these messages are necessarily all that prejudicial to us. I mean, there could be some impeachment concerns here. But what we are really worried about is the jury understanding that he is in custody.
okay. I said yesterday that I wanted to listen to these in the form that they would be presented before I rule. While we're listening to these, I don't have a copy of the case that you cited in front of me, Mr. Long, so I need that. And then if there's a law that the defense wants to argue, I'll hear that as well. Go ahead.
Even if they didn't see him get arrested, you have to know that if somebody is facing a first degree M, at some point they were arrested, period. If somebody is facing an M charge or any charge, at some point they're
just
arrested.
for quickness, what I will do is there is all of these phone calls have been identified by a alphanumeric hash, and so there are numbers and letters, and the last four are always going to be unique. And so I'm just going to say what those are. There's going to be one where the call is actually edited into 3 chunks, and I'll let the court know on that. All right, so this first one is going to be last 4 is going to be 3F as in Frank 17.
So here's 3 things. Here's 4 things, 5 things that you should know about that night. You texted me and I said I was sick, correct?
Right. You know what?
That I was sick.
Mm-hmm.
And then I didn't have my phone because it was charging.
Yeah.
3, the text messages are not mine. 4, I was handed my phone that day after Kiara did whatever she did.
Uh-huh.
And then 5, I was at AC Wireless the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
So
You wasn't there the whole time.
the detective coercing me into saying something that I didn't even do.
And Judge, is there any way that I could get this monitor at the podium up, just because the audio, I'm having trouble figuring out when the audio is ending. I can't actually see it on this computer screen.
Okay.
Mom knows he a crock of bull. All mom was trying to do was
This next one is going to be
away from her lungs.
1C as in Charlie 92.
That's what he was talking about.
I know I'm innocent. I know I didn't do anything. The text messages aren't mine.
No, you.
Everything that I've been saying is the truth.
The next one is 9CCA, so 9 Charlie Adam.
That night, I woke up late, asked for a ride because Kiara gave me a list, a grocery list, to go to Walmart to get some groceries. She wanted to make some stew. or something.
Uh-huh.
So I did that, and came back, had the groceries put in and everything, but left my phone in the garage.
Uh-huh.
And then I came back because I cooked some chicken strips. I think I remember telling you about the chicken strips that I like.
Mm-hmm.
You remember them?
Yeah. Well, I don't remember the name, but.
Then after that, Grace came over. Kiara went into the main house to get prepared for something, and she took her sword with her. You hear?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
No.
You know what I'm saying?
I'm hearing you, but.
But you ain't saying nothing. That was
Yeah.
funny. Weird.
So, and then after she did that, she went to the park and walked. Well, she told me when she went to the park and walked around with her sword unsheathed. There was
Mm-hmm.
going back and forth to that area, and they didn't even do anything.
Uh-huh.
So how does that sound when you have somebody else there walking around with a sword and sheath?
I don't know.
At the park in the middle of the night.
We didn't hear nothing.
I know. But after that, I was trying to go to bed.
Mm-hmm.
As I'm trying to go to bed, Kiara was over there using like a blade and rubbing it against my back. The knife.
Mm-hmm.
I did eventually get sleep for an hour, and then I had my phone thrown at me, and my phone was at 14%.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was charged when I gave her the phone after I texted, I'm still sick to you. So I gave her the phone. Are you hearing me?
No.
Are you
Uh-huh. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm still here. Are you hearing me?
Yes, I'm hearing you, sir.
I know. Okay. Well, and then after I did that, I called y'all because I was told to leave.
Mm-hmm.
And I went back after the call. I went back inside the garage to start packing up my stuff. And then that's when she told me that she wanted me back in a few days. I already made my decision that I was going to leave the relationship.
All right, the next one is going to be 59D1, 59 David 1.
And I was through Isaac Apodaca.
Yeah.
And then the other one, like I told you, I don't remember if I told you, but he had another Facebook account called Null Void.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, who's Null Void? It's just a Marvel character.
He's a villain.
Yeah, but I just said he's a Marvel character. And then she's like, oh, okay. And said, I got text messages at night. So I sent them to her. Yep. I sent them to her. I also sent her the one from Facebook, Isaac Apodaca, because I blocked that account because it was being hacked.
Yeah,
so actually send it to me.
I'm still trying to figure out who hacked it because it didn't seem like it was her. It didn't seem like it was Mary Lou.
The next one is 5B6C, so 5 Beta 6 Charlie.
I texted Grace that morning telling her, we're in danger, me and you. Let's get out of here as soon as possible.
Next one is 3EF8, 3 Edna Frank 8.
Here's something that I want everybody to know, whoever may be listening.
Ooh.
I'm going to say this. Kiara McCulley is a manipulator, a narcissist,
Ooh.
and a person who knows how to use words, the same type of words that there's words that the Russian KGB agents use.
Oh.
There's certain words that trigger me that she used to use, like "prove your love to me." That is one word. That is a phrase to me that makes me say things on impulse without thinking of the consequences.
So now a kid is manipulating you.
Okay.
That's why I say that confession is a bogus confession, because when the detective said that, I said something stupid, thinking that I was going to go home on the promise that he said I was going to go home.
Oh, okay.
See, I had nothing to do with this whole situation. Nothing, except calling 911 after you called 911.
Yeah.
That's all I did.
Next one is 1C97, 1 Charlie 97.
Yeah, this whole situation with what I'm facing is annoying, because she went and did everything alone, on her own, willingly and out of her own free will.
Yeah.
And she's trying to play it out like I'm Charles Manson.
The next one is 72D9, 72 David 9.
The day which everything happened.
Oh.
And I told her I didn't know anything was going to happen.
The next one is going to be part 1 of 90E7, so 90 Edward 7.
He's trying to push up the story to say I'm trying to help. I helped her. I did not help her. I wish I could talk to my attorney today, but
Yeah, so you'll see her on Monday.
I know it's just that whole story that the news is portraying. It made me feel horrible.
Because there was text messages.
Yeah.
That's the last time I heard about it.
Yeah, they said
It was on the newspaper.
They said there was text messages, but the text messages weren't even mine. And you can, if you were able to see the text messages, you would be able to tell, like, oh, this is so-and-so. This is Kiara talking. You know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah. That's so much stuff. Hold on. I'm trying to look for it.
Okay. It's just messed up that I'm dealing with a situation that she got me involved in. I have hope. Pray to God. I have nightmares about what.
Hold on.
The next one is going to be part 2 of that same conversation.
I didn't plan it. I don't get how I am suddenly involved with this whole planning situation.
I don't know why you don't.
Next one is part 3 of that same conversation.
That morning, I just felt like something bad was going to happen, and that's why I called y'all, and I called y'all to pick me up.
Mm-hmm.
I know you guys couldn't pick me up because you guys were out delivering, but I don't know what else would have been my other choice to do.
Mhm.
I was trying to contact everybody on Facebook to help, but nobody responded.
And the next one is going to be 055F, so 055 Frank.
I was going to the police station. She was smiling, singing, laughing, everything in the police station while I was just there. It's like, why am I here? Why am I involved? I was getting frustrated, and I don't know if the detective talked to you, but the detective told me that I had to back up, give him some space.
Mhm.
So I was getting upset. So I wasn't the one involved.
And the final one is going to be E1, E2, so Edward 1, Edward 2.
What I was going to say was, I'm going to go through the text messages and the thing, with the verbiage and the wordage on how I used it.
Yeah.
I check everybody to see how I texted. If my
Yeah.
post text don't match the same way I text there, the case
Yeah.
is done. But they
I-
said that it was a willful act to commit, but they are seriously doubting that I was even a part of it.
And that's the totality of the calls, Your Honor. And I do have a cite for the Andrew Romero case. We actually do have a copy for the court. That is going to be 2019 NMSC 007. Ms. Murphy has also been kind enough to pull up another case, and that is going to be State v. Chavez. Let me just get the cite on that. That's actually going to be a very.
You want the bang back?
I have the Westlaw number, which is going to be 2024 WL 1509182. I also do have the Supreme Court docketing number. That is going to be S-1-SC-39509.
3950.
Jesus.
Correct, Judge. And I do want to just cite to one paragraph. I believe it's right at the very end, pretty close. Both parties cite to our decision in State v. Rodriguez. That's going to be S-1-SC-36459 at paragraph 20. Non-presidential opinion, but in their briefs. In Rodriguez, this court concluded that the district court did not abuse its discretion when it admitted recordings of defendant's jail calls made while he was in pretrial custody for a first-degree murder charge. During the calls, the defendant in Rodriguez discussed the evidence the police had found, and he indicated that he remembered exactly what happened.
I was
Even though
thinking
the
about
theory
that
of his
again a
defense
little bit.
was that he had been too high to remember the murder. That's at paragraph 17. This court reasoned that alerting the jury of the defendant's incarceration was not, as the defendant argues, the same as a defendant appearing before the jury in prison clothing or shackles, because the calls were proffered as evidence of the defendant's mental state, not to imply that the defendant was guilty or a person of bad character.
Also, tomorrow is Miss Laura's birthday, but we won't be in court, so
The jail calls prejudicial impact, alerting the jury
happy
that the defendant was
birthday.
in jail 3 days after the crime took place, with its probative value, evidence of the defendant's mental state at the time of the killing, pursuant to 11-403 NMRA, before admitting the recordings.
Argument, Mr. Nair.
Yes, Judge. So first I'll rest on 5115, which basically talks about the appearance of defendant and witnesses before court. I mean, it clearly articulates that the defendant cannot be dressed in jail clothing, shackles, things like that. So I don't need to lecture the court on that. That's very straightforward as far as the work we have to do to ensure that the jury doesn't believe that the defendant is in custody and is dressed up. My members of my office have come round trip to Santa Fe from Albuquerque multiple times over the course of the last week to make sure that Mr. Apodaca has clothes and it does not look like he is in custody in the eyes of the jury. And that's done for a reason. Now, Your Honor, if we were to look at the case law here in regards to, I'm going to fall back on 11403 in regards to probative value and prejudicial value. But those jail calls, from the way I look at it, offer very little probative value for the state and actually adds basically just more cumulative evidence. It's basically Isaac providing his characterization of what was happening, which kind of falls in line with the defense's argument. There's also a statement about Charles Manson in there, which I think is highly prejudicial. Jury hears that, they're going to know who Charles Manson is, and they're going to believe that they may equate Mr. Apodaca to Charles Manson. So I believe that that is highly prejudicial, as well as the clothing or the clothing that he's wearing and what we're trying to argue that he is not in custody. Any indication that he is in custody would be highly prejudicial, and that outweighs any sort of probative value that the state's trying to bring in. I think the probative value here is very limited. I understand what the state is saying, that all evidence, all good evidence can be prejudicial. I don't think that this is good evidence here for the state. I think it's very limited in its probative value, and I think the state could be trying to introduce this because of the prejudicial effect on the jury hearing stuff like that the defendant could possibly be in custody. If you listen to those jail calls, you can hear a lot of noise in the background. I can't really differentiate if it's coming from Ms. Montoya's side or from Mr. Apodaca's side, but you can hear a lot of noise, almost like it's a gymnasium or a jail pod of some sort, right? And certainly the court or the jury is going to infer, I believe, that that is a jail holding cell, especially when he's having a conversation that's being recorded and his mother is on the line. The jury is not going to believe that. I don't think the jury is going to think that his own mom would just record him. The jury is going to believe that that's a jail call that was recorded through the jail. There's also State v. Jones, Your Honor, that addresses this. If I can have 1 second, Your Honor, I had this pulled up. So I have 11403, as I discussed, and then State v. Jones discusses, the context of 403 in regards to confusing issues, misleading the jury, delay, wasting time, needlessly presenting cumulative evidence. Again, I believe this is cumulative evidence. I believe it's wasting time because we would then be playing these jail calls that I've already offered can be introduced through a detective. So I have a kind of a curative situation for that. There would be undue delay and it would mislead the jury. We're talking about Charles Manson. We're hearing noise in the background that would make the jury infer that this is a jail call, and that would clearly mislead the jury, maybe have them confuse the issues for the very reasons why we don't want 11404B evidence in. If it's for propensity or different things, it could confuse the issues and it could create unfair prejudice, Your Honor. So, I mean, I think I understand that the case law is not very specific in New Mexico in regards to whether a jury knows somebody is in custody or not. But the problem here is, I mean, he was handcuffed. I mean, I had concerns about that, but I understood it was admissible. I mean, he was handcuffed. He was interrogated, but there's nothing showing that he was in fact sent to the county jail or any sort of jail or prison facility pending trial. And I think if they hear these calls, then they will be under the belief that his mom was calling him because he was in custody pending trial. And also, I mean, I explained this previously, I think in a sidebar conversation we had. I did not like the whole presentation with Ms. Montoya where Mr. Long was asking her to wave at Mr. Apodaca. It almost seems like, wave at your son before you sent back to jail. I think this is a whole presentation to make the jury understand that this person is in custody, and it's clearly prejudicial with I believe, very limited probative value, if basically little to no probative value for the state, Your Honor. It's cumulative evidence, and it's really this Mr. Apodaca kind of agreeing with what the defense arguments are in this case. And just got this note from my co-counsel. One second. So there's also a statement where it says, to whoever who is listening to this. I mean, I think that also creates an inference that to the jury that Mr. Apodaca is in custody. I mean, by him just throwing that out there, it sounds like he's understanding that somebody is listening to this because he understands that the jail calls are being recorded. So I think that those are.
How does the jury know that Mr. Apodaca knows that the jail calls are recorded, as opposed to his phone having been tapped under a warrant or some other way?
But Judge, when you're having a normal
No,
phone.
answer my question.
I'm sorry.
How would the jury know that? You've asked me to assume that that's what they're going to conclude, but he's making a statement to anyone that's out there listening. I don't know if he's speaking to the heavens. I don't know if he's speaking, believing that his phone is tapped. I don't know, sitting in the seat of the jury, that's kind of an innocuous statement as to what that might mean, and they won't get an answer to that. We won't tell them that these calls are recorded while he's in custody. So I understand that he's making that statement in the recording if they are allowed to hear that, but that doesn't necessarily lead to the conclusion that you're arguing that the jury would know that he's in custody. There's other ways somebody's phone or somebody's conversations could be recorded.
I understand that. I mean, we've seen it a lot of in federal cases, wiretaps and different things, but in a normal conversation, so the answer to your question is yes. I mean, we don't know, but at the same time, I think when somebody's having a normal conversation with their mom, they're not thinking that their phone is being tapped or people are listening to them. So I think there's a stronger likelihood. I'm not saying there's a definitive likelihood that the jury is going to believe that, but I'm saying that that creates more prejudice. It's more prejudice under 11403, and I think a jury could be more inclined to believe that he was in custody because a normal person isn't thinking that the feds or the New Mexico State DA's office is tapping them on a phone call. But when somebody says that, they probably have a understanding that they are being tapped. That they're being recorded in this particular case. I wouldn't be called a wiretap, but it would be that they would be tapped. So I totally understand what Your Honor is saying. I thought about that as well. There are different situations where we've seen people phones being tapped on regular conversations, but in this particular situation, in the state court case where somebody's in, talking to their mom on the phone, and he's saying whoever is listening to this, I think the reasonable expectation is that a jury could assume that this is this is the defendant understanding that he's being recorded in a jail call, Your Honor. So that's my concern. And again, I'll fall back on 403 and State v. Jones, Your Honor. The factors there: unfair prejudice, confusing the issues, misleading the jury, undue delay, wasting time. They'll be playing these phone calls, and needlessly presenting cumulative evidence. Again, I don't believe that. And I'm not trying to hone in on probative, prejudicial all the time, but I understand that there is evidence that is prejudicial that has an evidentiary value, and the probative value would outweigh that. But in this particular situation, Your Honor, I don't see any little to no probative value for this evidence that I believe is cumulative. The only effect here, I believe, would be prejudicial in regards to the Charles Manson stuff and the jury assuming that these are jail calls, Your Honor. So based on that, I would, based on 403, as well as, my understanding of how 515, and I understand, state and really even federal law hasn't really clarified or specified whether there should be whether a jury should know somebody is in custody. There's not specific case laws to that. I think it should be interpreted or implied from 5115 and other mechanisms that are used to make sure that a jury doesn't know that somebody is in custody, including him being dressed up and various other things. I mean, we wait for the jury to leave before we take him, deputies take him out, do different things, and that's specifically
Okay.
to ensure a safeguard that the jury doesn't know that he's in custody, and it's done for a reason, because the jury could then make all kinds of assumptions as to why somebody is being held pending trial, including
No money for bail.
but they could think that a judge or somebody else determined that that person is a risk, or that they didn't have money to post bail, or different things, Your Honor. So based on that, I
That's
think
what
that
they would be thinking, that he
those
didn't have money to
two
post.
issues, I believe,
No way.
should preclude these.
There's no way
from being
when
introduced.
somebody believes that somebody is charged with first degree conspiracy to commit first degree as an accessory, principal, or otherwise, that they did not get arrested.
We can get
And you
one
can't
very
get out so you can see a
quickly.
judge.
We'll just need to print it out.
Excuse me.
If the court can maybe just entertain the state for about a 2-minute reply to defense's response.
You have 2 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Judge, I think essentially what the defense is doing is they're asking the court to speculate what the jury is going to do. The jury is going to get an instruction on that, Judge. Also, in that Chavez case, there was one of the, looks like actually one of the paragraphs right towards the end, Judge, it basically says the prejudicial impact of alerting the jury that the defendant was in jail before trial was minimal.
Good morning,
As it is
today.
commonly understood that a person suspected of committing murder may be held in pretrial custody, and that's from the Rodriguez opinion. Judge, we've actually taken steps to remove any references about being in custody, and so I think that any concerns on that are really just not valid at this point. Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna recess, and I need a copy of, and I'll go try and pull it up in the back as well. I need a copy of 39509.
And we are printing that right now.
Okay, we're in recess and off the record. Everyone, just stay here. This shouldn't take too long, then I'll come back and give you a ruling and place on the record the court's rationale. We're in recess.
But I'm gonna text it to you as well.
They saw the conditions he was living in, and that wasn't even his house. Right? We've already heard testimony that what she say, she brought him over to spend the weekend because he'd been kicked out. Then we see how he was living on somebody else's property in a garage that probably shouldn't even be lived in. Because I know for a fact they didn't have any type of insulation or anything. They probably just scooted stuff over in a garage and decided to live in it. Probably didn't clean it out, didn't paint it, didn't put nothing. Nothing. Just threw a bed in there. I kept scratching like I had fleas yesterday. It was that those pictures were terrible. Those pictures were absolutely terrible. I still don't understand. The other thing is the John being in the yard. So y'all were going in that? Mm-mm. Mm-mm. It just, Miss Montresa, it looked like somebody was opening up the roof. Ooh, and in that. Like somebody was opening up the roof and just dumping trash in there and then closing the roof back. And like somebody had just been doing that for a year. Like just opening the roof and dumping stuff in. And then one day somebody went and opened the door and took a picture. That's what it looked like. That's what it looked like. It was just stuff everywhere, to the point where even the crime scene investigator said, how would I know if there's a struggle? Look at it. Like, how would I be able to tell if there was a struggle in there? Like, first of all, it's going to smell like a garage. Then they had like even when they first opened the door and took the first initial paper plates on the floor, on like right in the entrance. Like, y'all just step over that and walk in every day. Just step in that dirt, just a pile of dirt and mess and trash and debris. Step in that and then step into the place where you got to lay your head. Like, made you get up and clean up. Listen, because you learn looking around, ain't gonna be my house. Pick that up, get that up, put your toys up. Like, it was. But the part that made me so mad is that, or made me sad, I won't say mad, but I was sad, is that in that squalor, there was like a bin or a basket, duffel bags, book bags, laptop bag. Like, Grace had literally brought her life with her. I mean, to the point that she had her social security card on her, her birth certificate on her. Wherever she had come from, she was not going back. Can you imagine for this to be the life you like, the only thing you have available? To even where Grace was sitting on the floor. Yeah, that was one of Mr. James' trucks. It had while they were driving. Oh, Tiff Ann was fit to be tied, child. Yes. Tiff Ann was fit to be tied. If y'all saw that video Tiff Ann recorded and put on TikTok, that was real. But when I say she had to garden and go to sleep, she was no good. She could not do anything with a shadow or anything, okay? But yeah, Grace was in a situation where she had brought her whole life with her, and that was the only option, to stay there. And then to sit on the floor or be on the floor, like, where else could she be? That bed didn't look like it was big enough for the two of them. Like, why was that her only option? It's just so sad. And I understand that happens, that there are people who, may not have either the best relationship with their family, or they just may not have anybody that they feel safe enough to call, or other issues could be going on and they're not able to get along with anybody. A lot. Where's the cake, please? And it's just sad because it's like sometimes one phone call, one conversation can heal everything, or at least get a good start. And I wish that if there was a world where she just could have picked up the phone and went somewhere else. Anywhere else. Now that's another thing. Now, fleas. Oh God. What the hell, nephew? That's the other thing though. If people can't treat your home, can't respect your home, then you're not going to have them there. So we, like I said, I don't know what the situation was where that was the only option for her. Excuse me. I just hate that the only option for her was a place with somebody that absolutely, in every sense of the word, hated her. Hated her. Yeah, if you bring something into my house, it takes a long time to get over that. Please understand, Sharonda. It takes a long time to get over that, a very long time. And trust me, I know, because we are still working on cleaning carpet from one of our last guests. And the sad part is I say working on cleaning it because it was so bad that I continue to clean it because I don't want the carpet folks that I usually use to come and see that. I wanted to clean it first, and I've been cleaning it at least one to two times a month and prep for when they come for the fall at the end of August. So I understand, because I couldn't understand how somebody could do me like that after you've been good to them and then they tear your stuff up. I trust me, I get it. But yeah. Right, Keisha, that backstory is probably what I was thinking about that yesterday, because remember we kept hearing stuff like the family was scared and they had been doxxed and stuff like that when the whole tussle came out about the newspaper. So I started to wonder, are they scared of Isaac? Because yesterday, Kiara's mom said she only been scared of him that one time, but she ain't scared of him. I wondered if it was the internet, because ain't nothing in this world more brutal than local Facebook, okay? Local folks that know you, know of you, know your situation, know your time. Those folks will tear that ass up on Facebook. Do you hear me? You may get some folks saying some things on the Clock app and sometimes on IG. If a story goes viral, we know that people will say anything to you. They'll accuse you of anything. They'll call you anything. But there's nothing more brutal than local folks on Facebook. And if the local folks are sharing the family's personal information, addresses, phone numbers, that can probably be scary. If local folks that knew of Grace or knew of the fallout, knew of other family members, knew of folks that didn't help, they will be quick to call somebody out. I'm sitting up here actually thinking about making a statement because I saw there's a story that I started following a couple of days ago, and the local Facebook is brutal. Do you hear me? The local Facebook is so brutal. Local Facebook, get me put in Facebook jail. So yeah, there's no, right, like you said, Keisha, there's no telling what the community is saying. They weren't your typical teenagers. Folks are going to have a lot to say, I'm sure. And I know I had a lot to say once I saw these, once the ages start slapping me in the face yesterday. I had no understanding. About any of this once those ages start coming out. And you see that more likely when there is a generational like history of folks not having that achievement. But for mom to have
Let's
A
go back
bachelor's
on the
degree
record.
and just don't care about her
Will
making
we
it
reconvene
first
it?
semester of
Council,
10th
could you
grade
please
is
keep the roll,
crazy.
please? We're back on the record outside the hearing in presence of the
But
jury.
Pop had a
Mr.
whole
Apodaca present.
situation
The
when I was a
court
freshman
has
dating a senior
recessed
in
the
high
next
school.
matter
All
to
Pop said
review,
is that boy 18. That boy
four
finna be
different
18.
cases as
Pop
well as
wasn't
the
on it.
rules cited by counsel
Not at
in their
all.
arguments. The issue before the court is the state's request to be able to introduce certain conversations between the defendant and his mother. The objection comes as the concern by the defense that the jury, knowing that these might have been jail calls, would unduly prejudice the defendant, that the probative value of the information and the statements made outweighs is outweighed by the prejudicial knowledge that the defendant was in custody at the time that the conversations occurred. The state offers these, as the court's understanding, for really three. I wrote down three reasons. One is that the statements are contradictions to statements made at the time of his interview with law enforcement. The second is that this is statements that are different than those made at the time of his interview. And third, that this is some type of an evolving narrative by the defendant over time of his involvement in participation or non-participation in the death of Grace Jones. The court, having reviewed the Jones case as cited by defense, as well as the Romero case, the Rodriguez case, and the Chavez case in Rule 5403, makes the following findings and conclusions. First of all, with respect to the quality of the recordings themselves, the quality is, some of them are better than the others. The way the audio has been redacted, it is difficult at some points and times to hear the voices, particularly that of Mr. Apodaca in responding to or initiating statements to his mother. With respect to the background noise, there is background noise in the statements, but it is not clearly, it appears to be static or other chatter, but the court was unable to hear anything that identified that the background noise was coming from a detention facility. Defense counsel has argued that that would be the natural assumption. The court disagrees. There's many reasons why there may be poor quality, and even for the sake of argument, if a juror or jurors came to the conclusion that the calls were coming from a detention facility, having reviewed the relevant case law, the court finds that that fact in and of itself is not debilitating or unduly prejudicial to the extent that would bar presentation of the information. The court finds that the information is relevant under one or all of the three avenues presented by the state. The court finds in weighing the potential prejudicial nature of the location of the defendant during the time of the calls, it does not outweigh the probative value in the state's argument that Mr. Apodaca is as an accessory also has been charged with the first-degree murder of Grace Jones. In reviewing the case law, particularly the Romero case, most recently, there is no prohibition in our case law in New Mexico that would prevent the jury from having that knowledge, even if they came to that conclusion from the limited background noise in the calls. The defense argues that the natural assumption that the jury would make is that he's in custody. The court disagrees. There are many reasons why phone conversations are recorded or could have been recorded. That will be basically an unknown to the jury as this is presented as to how the recordings came into the possession of the state. Give me just a second. The defense has argued that the jail calls, the knowledge that the conversations occurred while the defendant was in custody is tantamount to our law in New Mexico that prohibits the defendant being brought before a jury in shackles or in a prison or jail clothing. Those are different. The prohibition is to prevent something that is occurring during the course of the trial that would prejudice the defendant. He would be the only one sitting potentially in the room in that state with being held in shackles or in jail or prison clothing in the open forum of the trial. That is different than discovery that has been developed and shared between the parties relevant to the issues that the jury ultimately has to decide as to whether or not there is any culpability on the part of the defendant with respect to the charges he is facing. Accordingly, the court finds that the 11 snippets or portions of much longer recordings do not unduly
Just say it.
that their probative value outweighs any prejudice that may occur, may inure if the if the jury or a juror concludes or assumes that the defendant was in custody during the recording of the conversations. The court will allow the 11 sound bites to be played before the jury as part of the state's case in chief. Is there a need for clarification of the court's findings or rulings, Mr. Long?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
Mr. Neer?
Your Honor, respect the court's opinion. If I could briefly just kind of differentiate the case cited by the state as well as the case.
You had your opportunity to argue, counsel.
Okay.
I'm asking if you have any question as to the court's findings or ruling.
No, Your Honor.
Okay. All right. Housekeeping wise, let's change gears. Who's up first this morning?
First is OMI, Your Honor, Dr. Emily Helmrich. Then we'll go into DNA and latents. That at this point actually may take us past the lunch hour. Then Jared Alire and Ryan Romero, who did the cell phone extractions. And then we'll likely start with Detective Vigil, although at this point I'm not sure that we'll get through him. The defendant's interview itself is a couple hours.
Okay.
And then the Facebook records are 200 pages, and we'll be reviewing most of them.
Okay.
So we're a little bit behind schedule at this point.
We are. Any other issues for the state before we can continue with the jury?
No, just that moving into Monday, we have two witnesses, Kiara McCauley and Dr. Wellner. I believe the state or defense may be putting on a case. So I know the court has a docket on Wednesday, but at some point we may need to talk about that.
Well, if we conclude with the proofs and the instructions on Tuesday, what I advise the jury is that they may have to come back to deliberate on Wednesday. So do you think it's still reasonable that we'll conclude with the proofs by the end of the day on Tuesday?
In terms of the state's case, I think we will likely have that by the end of the day on Monday. But if the defense puts on a case, it may be quite lengthy.
Okay. Any other issues with respect to scheduling today or overall, counsel?
Yeah. And Judge, we have not decided the extent of our case that we're going to be putting on at this time. I just want to let the court know.
Okay, well, one, a response, if you, I mean, you don't have to make any decisions until the state rests in its case in chief and we do our directed verdict motions. But would like a heads up if you've made a decision, if you think we'll go past presentations on Tuesday, because I would alert the jury to that so that they can make arrangements to potentially have to be here past Wednesday.
I'm seriously considering calling Mr. Apodaca to the stand.
You don't have to make any of those decisions at this point in time. Just say more for the record than anything else is, as everyone in the room knows, the burden is on the state to prove the case, and he has no affirmative obligation to do anything or to put on any kind of response, and that's your strategic and tactical decision after consultation and approval by your client. Okay, any other issues for the defense before we continue this morning?
Not from defense, Judge, thank you.
We'll have our jury then.
Hour and a half later. Go on, get up there. You know what, Isaac? Go on, get up there and make this make sense for me. I hope you do. Go on, get up there and make this make sense. Kiara, getting up there. And you don't strike me as the person to let somebody have the last word, even when it's probably detrimental to your own self. You got to say something. Well, they pointed out, hold on guys, they pointed out in the in openings that Kiara still got a little bit of Delulu in there. And she really hasn't completely separated herself from everything that may not be reality that was given to her by Mr. Isaac. So Kiara's testimony is going to be pretty damn interesting, to say the least. Yeah, they don't do a good job of getting in front of the mic.
You may be seated in the courtroom, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay, it looks like
Let's go back on the record.
Subtitles. Let's try this.
We reconvene in the state of New Mexico versus Isaac Apodaca. This is criminal cause D101 CR 2023-25 with counsel, jury, and Mr. Apodaca all present. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We're getting a little bit of a late start this morning, but the attorneys and I have been meeting to try and organize the day. We're going to try and get through a lot today. As we did at the end of the day yesterday, you'll see a lot of this come kind of very methodical and very quickly. If you recall the last about an hour and 20 minutes that we had at the end of the day yesterday. Scheduling, we appear to be a little bit behind where we thought we would be at this stage. So we're going to push real hard today to get as much in front of you as possible so that when we return next week, hopefully we get caught up and continue on the same schedule. Again, if there's anything that you need during the course of the trial, please catch my attention or the bailiff's attention. So we'll get started immediately. We'll continue in the state's case in chief. Who is your next witness?
Dr. Emily Helmrich.
Ma'am, if you would please rise and face me and raise your right hand, I'm going to place you under oath. You swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under penalty of perjury.
Yes, I do.
Please have a seat. And if you'd begin, please, by stating your name for our record and spelling your name, please.
Yes, my name is Emily Helmrich, EMILYHELMRICH.
Ms. Murphy.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, ma'am.
Hey,
Can you please tell the jury what you do for a living?
I am a medical examiner or a forensic pathologist. What that means is I perform autopsies on individuals who die outside of the care of a doctor or on individuals who die an unnatural death.
Thank you. Let's talk a little bit about your educational background and training that led to you being a forensic pathologist. I assume you graduated high school.
Yes.
Okay. And after high school, what did you do?
After high school, I obtained degrees in anthropology and biomedical science. I then got a master's degree in aging and neuroscience. I attended medical school. I came here to Albuquerque at the University of New Mexico for my residency training in anatomic and clinical pathology. And then I did another year of subspecialty training in forensic pathology.
I'm going to have you define a couple of those things. What is anatomical pathology?
Anatomic pathology is a type of doctor who has graduated from medical school and can do a variety of things. Mostly they look at tumors under the microscope and make diagnoses, but they also perform autopsies to see how disease affects the body.
Okay. And what's clinical pathology?
Clinical pathology is another type of pathology. These pathologists will run the blood bank at the hospital, making sure that patients get safe blood products. They will also do other various things in patient care, specifically for diagnosing diseases.
And I guess maybe just define pathology as a general area of medicine.
Pathology is just the specialty of medicine on how disease and trauma affects the body.
Okay. And what's forensic pathology?
A forensic pathologist receives an extra year of training specifically on how to perform autopsies to determine a cause and a manner of death for unnatural deaths.
Can you share with the jury where you hold medical licenses?
Currently, I'm licensed here in New Mexico, Washington, Texas, and Iowa.
Where or are you board certified in any subspecialties or specialties?
Yes, I am board certified in anatomic and forensic pathology.
What does it mean to be board certified?
It means I sat for a national examination and I passed the test, and then I maintain the requirements to keep that certification.
Great. Have you taught or trained others in your field?
Yes.
Can you, I'm not going to ask for every training or lecture you've offered, but can you just maybe hit a few highlights for the jury of some of the trainings you've conducted?
I train medical students at the University of New Mexico, residents at UNM, as well as our fellows in their forensic pathology training. I also train paramedic and EMT students throughout the state, and then I have taught nationally as well on certain topics.
Great, thank you. Are you a member of any professional organizations or national associations?
Yes, I'm a member of the National Association of Medical Examiners and the American Academy of Forensic Science.
Great. Have you ever taught or received training taught others or received training yourself in sharp wound injuries, such as stabbings or knife injuries?
Yes, I have.
Okay. Can you explain that to the jury, just what trainings you've had or performed yourself for others?
Yeah, so when I was in training, I had dedicated lectures from other forensic pathologists on how to interpret those wounds. And now I give those lectures to our fellows as part of their curriculum.
Have you ever testified before today?
Yes, I have.
Okay. Approximately how many times?
A little over 40.
And have you ever been qualified as an expert witness?
Yes,
In what fields or designations?
in forensic pathology.
Thank you. Have you published in your field?
Yes, I have.
Do you ever have nightmares of a lawyer asking you to name all your publications on the stand?
Yes, I do.
I won't do that to you then. Just make sure. Your Honor, at this time, I would tender Dr. Emily Helmrich as an expert in the field of forensic pathology.
Any objection?
No objection. No objection from the defense, Your Honor.
You're so received and allowed to express your opinion in that limited area. Go ahead.
Okay, now let's talk about where you work. You said you work for the Office of the Medical Investigator?
I'm technically employed by the University of New Mexico, but in that capacity, I work at the Office of the Medical Investigator, which is the medical examiner's office for the state of New Mexico.
What is the purpose of OMI or your job through UNMH with OMI?
To investigate deaths that occur outside the care of a doctor or that are unnatural.
After you've performed an autopsy, do you draw conclusions sometimes as to cause and manner of death?
Yes.
Can you explain cause and manner of death to the jury?
The cause of death is exactly what it sounds like. It's what caused a person to die. Some options are pneumonia, heart attack, stab wound, gunshot wound, trauma. A manner of death is an opinion rendered by the pathologist based on the circumstances surrounding the death. And there's only 5 options for the manner. Those are natural, accident, suicide, homicide, and undetermined.
Let's talk about the process of an autopsy. Where do you perform autopsies?
At the OMI in Albuquerque.
Okay. When a case or a person is assigned to you, how do they arrive at the Office of the Medical Investigator?
One of our investigators is deployed to the scene of the death and will place a identification band around the wrist of the person who has died, place them in a body bag, and seal that bag. When we receive a person at our office for exam, they're received in that sealed body bag.
And then once the case is assigned to you, what do you do?
The first thing that I do is review any photographs that were taken by our investigator at the scene of the death. I'll hear a brief overview of the circumstances surrounding the death, if we have those. And then I'll also review CT scan images of the person. We perform a full body CT scan on every individual who comes to us for an exam. I will do those 3 things before my autopsy.
As part of your job and the training you've received, are you qualified to review CT scans and imaging?
Yes, that's part of our daily process. Yeah.
Thank you. Once you've done that initial review of the scene photos, any background information, and any imaging that's been conducted, what do you do?
Then that body bag will be opened. The individual will be looked at as received, meaning with clothing and medical intervention still in place if those things were there. There will be evidence collected on that individual as part of a routine process, and then photographs are taken. After that, anything is removed from the body is not washed, and we repeat the photographs and then wash the body and do that again a 3rd time.
After you've kind of done this progressed examination, external examination, with the different photographic stages, what do you do next?
After looking at the outside of a person's body for identifying features or injuries, then we will perform an internal examination of the body, looking at the head and the chest and the abdomen for injuries and disease.
Hold on, counsel. Ladies and gentlemen in the gallery, I've asked you to turn off your phones and laptops. The only individuals the court is allowed to be using those is the media. So unless you're assisting either party as part of this case, I would ask you to turn off your electronic devices. Sorry for the interruption. Continue, counsel.
It's okay. Let me actually take just this pause to step back and talk about evidence collection from the body. Can you describe for the jury what sort of evidence you might collect from a person's body?
So we will take clippings of the tips of a person's fingernails for evidence. We clip those with clean clippers, and then those clippers and the clippings are packaged, sealed, and secured to be released to law enforcement. We will also take a blood spot card, just a drop of blood on a piece of paper for law enforcement to have, as well as collecting some hairs from the person's head as well.
Is that blood spot card also sometimes called an FTA blood card?
Exactly.
Thank you. All right. So again, you said you moved from an external examination, and as you're doing the external examination, you take photos of any injuries you observe. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And what do you do with photos that you collect as part of your autopsies?
The photos are taken with an OMI designator label, so I know that they belong to that particular person. And then they're uploaded to our case file and reviewed by me before I finalize the autopsy report.
Are you involved in every single stage of the autopsy?
It depends.
Okay. Can you explain that to the jury?
There is an autopsy technician that's assisting the doctor. And then I may also have a trainee performing the examination that I'm supervising. So whether it's me and the technician or me and the trainee and a technician, we're working together. At least one pathologist is present for every step.
And do you review all information from every step of the case in addition to everything that you're present for?
Yes, but I don't have anything that I review for the evidence that's collected. We simply collect that and release that to law enforcement.
Okay. So you don't examine the fingernail clippings necessarily,
Correct.
or you perform testing on them, I guess would be better.
Yes, we just collect them and release them.
But in terms of the autopsy itself, are you present or pathologist is present for every stage of the autopsy?
Yes, and if I'm supervising, then I am present to see every injury, every significant finding for that case.
When you upload photos from a case to your system, are those photos altered or edited in any way?
No.
Can you explain the process of an internal examination a little bit more to the jury?
Yeah, an internal examination is what I'm sure we've all seen on TV, right? With the Y incision that's made on the front of a person's body. Then we access the organs of the chest and the abdomen. Those organs are removed and examined individually by the doctor, as well as examining the cavities where those organs were for injuries. That's for the chest and abdomen. We will also open the head, remove the brain, and examine the skull and the brain for any injuries or disease.
Thank you. Is there anything else you'd like to add about either the external examination or the internal examination before we move on?
No.
Okay, thank you. Let's talk about additional testing that you may perform or are asked to be performed after the external and internal examinations. What sort of testing or follow-up analysis might you order in a case?
We often will order toxicology testing from either blood or another specimen from the individual who died. That will get sent to another laboratory and the results will be reported back to me. Sometimes we also look at little pieces of tissue under the microscope to find things that I wouldn't see with my eyes at the exam, and I would have to only see that way.
What does toxicology mean?
Toxicology is testing of a specimen for the presence of drugs or alcohol.
And what specimens do you routinely test from a person's body for drugs or alcohol?
Most commonly the blood and the urine.
Okay. And when you send those specimens off for testing and receive those reports back, do you rely on those reports in formulating your opinion in cases?
Sometimes I do, and sometimes I don't. If there was not a readily apparent cause of death at the time of the autopsy, then I will depend on those toxicology results.
Okay. Can they still inform your opinion, even if there is a readily apparent cause of death?
Sometimes.
Okay, thank you. And are those toxicology results performed by another state agency or state accredited lab?
Yes, they are.
Okay, I'd like to talk a little bit about bodies in general. Can you explain a couple concepts to the jury? One would be the concept of blood pressure. What does it mean to have a blood pressure?
So we have blood vessels in our body. We can think of them as pipes. In order to move water through a pipe, there has to be some type of pressure. You have to turn on the faucet. Our bodies operate the same way. In order for blood to flow through blood vessels, there has to be some type of pressure that pumps that blood through the vessels, and that pressure is generated by the heart.
Okay, so what happens if the heart is not beating.
Then you would not have a blood pressure.
And what does that mean in terms of how someone bleeds or doesn't bleed, in terms of if the heart is beating and you have a blood pressure versus if the heart is not bleeding and you're deceased and do not have a blood pressure?
If you sustain an injury while your heart is not beating, then that injury will not bleed. If you sustain an injury while your heart is beating, then you will bleed.
If there is an open injury on an individual who's deceased, can blood still exit the body?
Sometimes.
Okay. Can you explain that to the jury?
If there's blood in a cavity of the body, like our chest cavity where our lungs sit, and there's a hole connecting that cavity to the outside, sometimes blood can seep through that hole from where it was existing in the cavity to outside the body.
Okay. So can gravity and access to, through a hole help blood exit the body even after someone's dead?
It makes it a possibility.
Okay, thank you. Let's talk about the concept of scabbing. What is a scab?
A scab is a crust that our body forms on an injury to help it heal and to help it stop bleeding.
Do dead people form scabs?
Scabs are not formed after death, no.
Generally speaking, how long are you able to say how long it takes for scabs to form?
Generally speaking, I think of scabs as forming after one sleep, so about a day. That being said, there can be variability in how big the injury is and then how noticeable the scab is.
Sure. Do you have training in tool mark identification? You said that you teach a little bit on you teach on sharp force injuries?
I do teach on how to assess and measure and interpret sharp force injuries on the body. I do not have training in analyzing a tool for marks on a tool.
Okay. So if something had like a serrated versus a smooth edge, that would not be something you would offer an opinion on?
I'm trained to identify features of wounds on the body caused by serrated knives versus not, but just strictly assessing injuries on a body, not assessing a knife itself.
I see. So if I brought you two separate knives and said which one was used in this case, that would be not something you would render an opinion on.
Correct.
Okay. But you could talk about the injuries as they appear on the body, and the measurements and associated conclusions from those measurements and observations.
Yes.
All right, thanks. Before we turn to this case that you're here to testify on, is there anything else about the autopsy process or the process of death and dying that you feel the jury should understand?
I can't think of anything.
Okay. Turn to this case. Are you familiar with a case involving an individual named Grace Jennings?
Yes, I am.
How are you familiar with that case?
This Miss Jennings had an autopsy performed in 2022, specifically October 31st, 2022, by one of my forensic pathology fellows, Dr. D. Pasquale. I supervised that examination, and then I finalized the autopsy report determining a cause and manner of death.
So in terms of supervising, you were present for every important stage of the autopsy?
I viewed Miss Jennings as she was received with her clothing still on her body. I reviewed her body after that clothing was removed, and then I reviewed her body after her body was washed. I saw every injury that was on her body, and I also reviewed her internal injuries as well.
Thank you. In this case, were you able to observe enough injuries and enough data points to draw a conclusion as to cause and manner of death in this case?
Yes.
Okay. And what is your ultimate opinion as to cause and manner of death?
Miss Jennings' cause of death is sharp force injuries, and her manner of death is homicide.
What's a stab wound versus an incised wound?
Stab wounds and incised wounds are both sharp force injuries. A stab wound is deeper than it is long, and an incised wound is longer than it is deep. A stab wound is exactly what we all can probably visualize, a deep wound caused by a sharp object, and an incised wound is a cut or a slice of the skin.
Thank you. Can you, let's now turn to Grace's autopsy and discuss that. What were your overall findings about Grace in terms of her stages of development, nutrition, or nourishment, the overall initial observations?
Ms. Jennings was a healthy appearing 21-year-old woman. She was thin, but she otherwise looked like a normal 21-year-old woman.
And when she arrived, was there any evidence of attempts at medical intervention or medical assessment prior to arrival at OMI?
Not significantly. I believe she may have had an EKG pad or a sticky sticker that EMS places on her leg, but otherwise she did not have any significant medical intervention, no.
Okay. Any evidence of any sort of underlying natural diseases that would have been involved in your opinion?
She was a healthy young woman on my exam.
Okay. Can you very generally describe the overall injuries to Ms. Jennings, and then we'll review them in more detail?
Ms. Jennings had multiple sharp force injuries on her body. She had 12 stab wounds and at least 8 incised wounds, so 12 stabs and 8 slices. She also had additional incised wounds on both of her hands, so greater than 20 sharp force injuries.
Jesus.
And I see in your report you have the evidence of injuries broken down in categories from A to U, as in umbrella. Is that an appropriate methodology to take in terms of talking about her injuries?
Yes.
Okay. So injury category A, what was that?
If it's okay, I'd like to refresh my memory with my report so I can track along with you.
Your Honor, given that Dr. Helmrich is an expert witness, we'd ask that she be able to utilize her report from the council table. Both parties have that report.
Any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
Go ahead.
Thank you.
Well, she did.
So the wound on Ms. Jennings' body that was designated A is an incised wound or a cut that was on the right side of her neck.
And I guess I should back up. Are you able to make determinations if injuries are rendered before, during, or after someone dies?
Sometimes we can say that and sometimes we can't.
Okay, can you explain that a little bit more to the jury?
Just like we talked about earlier with having a blood pressure, if a person sustains an injury while they have a blood pressure, that injury will be bloody in the tissues. If they sustain that injury after their heart has stopped beating, then that injury will not be bloody in the tissues.
What can make something indeterminate? Why would you sometimes not be able to render an opinion on if it was before or after death?
It can sometimes be hard to put an injury definitively in one of those categories if a person sustains an injury while they have a very low blood pressure. So when they are dying actively, or if the injury is very small and doesn't involve much tissue, then it can also be hard to say.
Okay, thank you. As to the category A, the wound on the right upper side of the neck, are you able to offer an opinion as to whether that was before or after death?
The wound on the right upper side of her neck, designated A, is most likely post-mortem, meaning it occurred while Ms. Jennings did not have a blood pressure.
And why do you draw that conclusion?
The tissues in that area were not as bloody as I would expect for injuries sustained in a living person.
Thank you. As to category B, what injury did you classify under category B?
Category B is a stab wound of the right side of the neck that was underneath wound A.
Would you mind gesturing on your own neck and body where A is
and where B would be.
Sure. So wound A was an incised cut.
And for purposes of the record, you're using your index finger to kind of point under your ear along your right jawline, sort of. Is that a fair description?
Yes.
Okay. And category B?
Stab wound B was located underneath that, somewhere in this general area.
Okay. And for purposes of the record, you're using your index finger to point kind of on the right side of your neck, about midway between your neck and collarbone, or jaw and collarbone?
Yes.
Right. Thank you. Okay. What information can you give to the jury about that penetrating stab wound to the neck?
The stab wound B on the right side of Miss Jennings' neck also I favor to be post-mortem, meaning it occurred after she died. The tissues were not as bloody as I would expect for a living person.
Are you able
Insane.
to
Hold on, y'all.
make a determination in your
Neck that was underneath wound A.
would you mind?
Designated A is most likely post-mortem, meaning it occurred while Miss Jennings did not have a blood pressure.
And why do you draw that conclusion?
The tissues in that area were not as bloody as I would expect for injuries sustained in a living person.
It was just in there.
As to category B, what injury did you classify under category B?
Category B is a stab wound of the right side of the neck that was underneath wound A.
Would you mind gesturing on your own neck and body where A is and where B would be?
Sure. So wound A was an incised cut.
And for purposes of the record, you're using your index finger to kind of point under your ear along your right jawline, sort of. Is that a fair description?
Yes.
Okay. And category B?
Stab wound B was located underneath that, somewhere in this general area.
Okay. And for purposes of the record, you're using your index finger to point kind of on the right side of your neck, about midway between your neck and collarbone, or jaw and collarbone?
Yes.
Right. Thank you. Okay. What information can you give to the jury about that penetrating stab wound to the neck?
The stab wound B on the right side of Miss Jennings' neck also I favor to be post-mortem, meaning it occurred after she died. The tissues were not as bloody as I would expect for a living person.
Are you able to make a determination as to the direction of that injury?
Yes, referring to my report, wound B, stab wound B was right to left and downwards.
Thank you. Going to category C, what was that injury?
Wound C was another stab wound of Miss Jennings' neck. This time, this stab wound was located on the left upper part of her neck in this general area.
And again, for purposes of the record, you're using your index finger to point on your left jawline, or just below your jawline.
Exactly.
All right, thank you. Were you able to, what information about the path of that injury can you provide to the jury?
Referring to my report, that direction that the knife took once it entered her body was left to right and slightly downwards.
Can you just use the word knife? Is that a conclusory statement about the type of implement that was used?
No, that's me just using a broad term for a sharp object.
Were there any internal injuries associated with category C, this penetrating stab wound of the left neck?
Nothing significant. This wound did injure her airway, but I do favor that that's a after death injury.
Moving to category D, is in Delta. What was that?
Wound D was another stab wound of Miss Jennings' neck that was located on the bottom part of her neck, somewhere in this area.
And you're gesturing right between your collarbones at the very base of your neck, top of your chest. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right, thank you. And what can you tell the jury about any associated injuries and direction of the injury?
For the direction for this wound was front to back and downwards. This wound cut Miss Jennings' right carotid artery. That's a large artery that is comes from our chest and then extends up through our neck to our head. This wound occurred after she had died.
And why do you form the opinion that that carotid injury would have happened after she died?
This is one of the wounds that I can be definitive about. The carotid artery is a large artery, and if you have a blood pressure, it will bleed a lot. So the absence of bleeding in that area means her heart was not beating when she sustained that wound.
Have you reviewed photographs from the scene of death?
Yes,
Okay. And in those photographs, there's blood in a spot on an area on the floor, and there's blood on bed and bedding. Did you review those photographs?
I did.
Okay. To a layperson, that may appear like a very bloody scene. To a medical investigator, how bloody does that scene appear to you?
It's kind of hard to say. There's such a spectrum, and it depends on how many wounds a person has, but the amount of blood at the scene was within what I would expect for a person who died from sharp force injuries.
Would you have expected more blood on the scene if the carotid injury had been while Grace was alive?
I hesitate to answer that without having seen the scene myself, but it's possible that that was not enough blood. I've definitely seen more blood at a scene with a person who is has a wound of the neck with a carotid injury. Yeah.
Thank you. But it is your opinion that that carotid injury was postmortem.
Yes.
Moving to a category of wounds that are defined as a wound track. What's a wound track?
A wound track is a path through the tissues and organs of the body that connects to things. So for a sharp force injury, that would be the path that a sharp object takes once it enters the body. What did it pass through inside of the body?
Okay. So if I stabbed through my hand with my pen, would one side be, say, A, and the other side could be B to form that wound path?
Exactly.
Okay. For the first wound path broken down into category E and L, where were those entry and exit wounds located on Grace's body?
Yes, Miss Jennings had 2 holes on her body on her left upper shoulder area. One of those was on the front upper shoulder. The other was on the back upper shoulder. And those 2 holes on her skin connected through a path inside of her body.
Okay. Did that wound path, E as in echo, L to Lima, involve any major organs or structures in Grace's body?
No, although the designation E also includes a separate stab wound, that did.
Okay. And where did that separate stab wound under category E fall?
That separate stab wound was on the front of her left shoulder beneath the other hole, also designated E. That stab wound entered her left chest cavity.
For purposes of the record, you've taken your right arm and crossed over your chest and designated to your left upper shoulder and then below, or where your shoulder and your chest kind of connect, and below that point for the second stab wound. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. And if I misuse the term for a body part, please correct
I
me.
will, yes.
All right. Is there anything else you'd like to inform the jury about regarding either category E or the wound track from E to L?
No, just that it may be confusing, but what we just discussed was 2 separate stab wounds.
But because of their general area, you broke E. You categorized 2 wounds under E because they were in the same area.
Exactly.
So now going to category F, as in Frank, and its wound track into N through N as in Nancy. Can you tell the jury about that?
Yes, this also represents 2 separate stab wounds. So Ms. Jennings had 2 stab wounds on the front of her chest. That's designated with the letter F. One of those wounds traveled through and was associated with a hole on her right upper back. Another stab wound, the second stab wound of F, just entered into her chest and did not come out her back.
Did those wounds involve any major organs or structures in Grace's body?
Yes, the wound F that also was associated with a wound on her right upper back injured her right lung, and she had a little bit of blood in her chest cavity and air in her chest cavity from that.
Um, Why is it bad to have blood and air in your chest cavity?
Our lungs need certain pressures to be able to stay open. That's how we breathe. So when something enters the chest cavity, like a wound, our lung can collapse, and that would make it very difficult for a person to breathe if an entire lung collapses.
Would this wound, F and the F to N, would these be fatal injuries?
They could be, yes.
Okay. And do you have an opinion as to whether these injuries were inflicted while she was alive or deceased?
I do favor that these two separate wounds, F, could certainly have occurred while she was alive. It's my opinion that it's most likely that that's what happened.
Is there anything else about these categories of injuries before we move on to G and associated wound tract M?
No.
Okay, then let's talk about category G as in golf and M as in Mike.
G and M is one stab wound that is also associated with two holes on Miss Jennings' body. So there was a sharp force hole on the skin of her upper back, and that connected to a small hole on the front of her right shoulder. And that wound was a sharp force injury.
Are you able to say the entry and exit point for the wound tracks? For example, are you able to say that the whether it's a knife or sword, that the sharp instrument used entered through the back and exited the front, or vice versa?
For Miss Jennings, perforating wounds, meaning the wounds that both entered and exited her body, this is the only wound that I can say the direction. The direction for this wound was back to front.
Thank you.
Which is nuts.
Did this category or did this stab wound G to M impact any major organs or structures in Grace's body?
It also injured her lungs.
And do you have an opinion on whether this was inflicted prior or after death?
This is one that is possible that it happened while she was alive.
Anything else about the G to M wound track that you would like the jury to know?
No.
Okay. Let's move on to category H. What was category H?
Category H was a very small cut on Miss Jennings' body that was located on her right arm, almost the front part of her right shoulder near the armpit.
Do you have an opinion on, you said it was a very small wound, but are you able to form an opinion on whether it was pre or post-mortem?
I can't be definitive about if this one occurred while she was alive or not, no.
Let's move on to category I, excuse me, is in India. What is category I?
Category I represents multiple cuts on Miss Jennings' hand, on her right hand specifically. She had cuts on the front of her index and middle fingers. She had a cut on her palm near the base of her thumb, and she had a cut at the base of where her pinky is on her palm. She also had a cut on the side of her pinky. And so group I represents all of these hand cuts.
And for purposes of the record, you just held up your right hand and used your left index finger to demonstrate where those injuries were on your own hand.
Yes.
Thank you. Do you have an opinion on whether these were pre or post-mortem?
These injuries occurred while Miss Jennings was alive.
And why do you say that?
The tissues were bloody and bruised in these areas, and that would only happen if her heart was pumping.
Let's move to group J as in Juliet. What injury cluster or group is that?
Group J represents multiple cuts on Miss Jennings' left hand. Those were located on the front of her index, middle, and ring fingers. They were also located on her palm, and then she had a small cut on the back of her middle finger.
Do you have an opinion on whether those wounds were sustained while she was alive or deceased?
These cuts on her left hand were also while she was alive.
And why do you draw that conclusion?
The tissues were bloody, and so she had to have had a blood pressure.
Category K is in kilo. What injury or group of injuries fell into category K?
K is just a single cut or incised wound on the front of Miss Jennings' right knee.
Would that be a fatal injury?
No.
And do you have an opinion on whether that was sustained while alive or deceased?
This one was not extremely bloody, but it was very fatty. And so I think it's possible that this could have happened while she was alive or after she died.
We've talked about L, M, and N as it corresponds to the wound tracks. So let's go to group O as in Oscar. What is group O?
Group O is a cluster of 3 stab wounds on Miss Jennings' lower back. They were very close together, and these just entered her body and did not exit her body.
Did these injuries involve any important organs or structures within Grace's body?
They injured her spleen, which is one of the organs that lives in our abdomen. And then it also caused bleeding in the tissues around the spleen.
Did it injure any of her ribs?
Yes.
Can you please just explain that to the jury?
Yes. So just referring back to my report, some of the stab wounds of her chest, as well as these 3 stab wounds, would injure her ribs as a sharp object travels through the area. And so for this cluster group O, she had some injury to her left lower ribs of her left lower back.
Okay. Can you describe the wound tracks?
Yes. So for this cluster of 3 stab wounds on her lower back, the wounds entered through the tissues of her back, entered her abdominal cavity from behind, and then went between some of her ribs and cut her spleen and her diaphragm. That's the muscle that we use to breathe.
Would these injuries have been fatal?
They could have been.
And do you have an opinion as to whether these were sustained while alive or deceased? I may have asked you that already for this category. I apologize.
That's okay. You didn't, but I do favor that these occurred while she was alive, given the presence of bleeding in the tissues. And she also had some blood in her abdominal cavity.
Let's move to category P as in Papa. What was that category?
Category P is a cut or a slice of the left lower part of Miss Jennings' neck.
Okay. Do you have an opinion on whether that would have been pre or post-mortem?
This wound occurred after she had died,
And why do you say that?
because this area would have been very bloody if it was injured while she was alive, and it wasn't.
Going to category Q.
They lying, little mama. They are lying.
What did you observe that you classified as category Q?
Wound Q is just a single cut or incised wound on the back of her left shoulder that just injured the skin and the underlying fat.
Do you have an opinion on whether this was pre or post-mortem?
I favor that this occurred after she died, but I can't be definitive.
Going to category R's and Romeo, what injury was this?
R is a stab wound of Miss Jennings' right side of her belly, and that wound traveled into her abdominal cavity, injured her diaphragm, that breathing muscle, and also damaged her liver.
Could these injuries have been fatal?
Yes.
And were these injuries sustained pre or post-mortem?
I cannot say for sure one way or another for this wound. It's possible that she had been alive, but it's also possible that she hadn't.
Jesus.
Let's move to category S as in Sierra. What injury or category formed S?
S is a single slice wound or a cut of the back left portion of Miss Jennings' scalp on the back of her head.
Can you please gesture on your own body where that would be?
In the general area.
And you've just used your left hand to demonstrate kind of just above your ear line, further back on your head. Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you. And what can you tell the jury about this injury?
This injury just injured the skin and the underlying tissues, and there was not a significant amount of associated bleeding. I do favor this occurred after she had died.
What was the state of her hair around that injury? Do you recall?
I don't recall off my recollection. I don't.
We're going to look at the photos in a little bit. Will that help you remember?
It could, but we also shave the hair to see the wound, so it may not, but I'll try.
Thank you. I guess I should have asked that question, whether you altered the hair as part of your autopsy.
We did.
Going to category T as in tango, what injury or injuries fell into category T?
Category T was another slice or a cut on the back of Miss Jennings' neck, kind of where our scalp will meet our neck.
Can you gesture on your body where that is? And you've just lifted up your hair and used your right hand to point almost directly in the back at the base of your skull. Is that fair? Yeah. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I didn't get a verbal answer.
Yes, thank you.
Do you have an opinion, or did this
This
damage any structures or organs?
Just the tissues and skin.
And do you have an opinion as to whether category T is an injury that would have been inflicted pre or post mortem?
This injury also occurred after she had died.
Let's go to category U. What is category U, the final category of injury?
U is a single slice or cut wound of Miss Jennings' back of her head. This was located on the right part of her scalp above her right ear.
And does this injury appear similar, kind of mirroring injury S?
Yes.
hair was falling
Those
off
kind
of
of
her
two
head.
slice wounds, one on each side of her head above her ears?
Yes.
Would this injury have been inflicted pre or post mortem?
This injury also occurred after she had died.
And that's because of the lack of bleeding in the tissues?
Yes.
So we've talked about a number of injuries and a number of ones that could or could not be fatal. Can you just explain to the jury how did Grace die? What was injured that led to her death?
So Miss Jennings had wounds on her hands, cuts on her hands that occurred while she was still alive. So she was in contact with a sharp object while her heart was beating. She had wounds of her head and neck that largely occurred after she had died, and she had wounds of her chest and back and abdomen that at least one of these had occurred while she was alive. She had blood in her abdominal cavity and some blood in her chest cavity, and that would really kind of only happen if she had been alive while she sustained these. So at least one of the wounds of her chest and abdomen caused her death.
And how specifically? Did she bleed out? Can you explain that to the jury?
Yeah, so Miss Jennings, first and foremost, had air in both of her chest cavities, so both of her lungs were collapsed. If that had occurred on either side of her chest, that could have caused her death, but it occurred on both sides of her chest, and so that certainly could have been fatal. Her lungs would not have been able to expand to allow her to breathe, especially in combination with injury to her diaphragm, that muscle that helps us breathe. She also had injury to her spleen, which was associated with some bleeding in the tissues nearby. So she did have some blood loss in the tissues at that area. And then she had a little bit of blood loss in her belly and her chest cavities.
Are you able to form an opinion on how long it would have taken Grace to die from the time that the fatal injuries were inflicted? How long from when the fatal injuries were inflicted until she would be dead?
Miss Jennings did not have any immediately fatal wounds, so it would have taken her at least a couple of minutes to die.
Is there anything else you would like the jury to understand about the injuries before we view the injuries?
No.
I guess quickly, in terms of after your autopsy, did your office collect specimens that were sent for toxicology testing?
Yes, we did.
Okay. And did you receive the results of that toxicology testing from the state certified laboratory?
Yes,
Okay. And did you review those as part of your case?
I did.
And what specimen was analyzed and what, if anything, resulted in the toxicology testing?
And just to clarify, it was not the state laboratory that performed this testing. It was another laboratory that we send all of our toxicology to, an accredited lab called NMS Laboratories.
Oh God, we didn't heard about
So,
it.
but it is an accredited lab that the Office of the Medical Investigator uses.
Real quick, this means mom and everybody else around that garage is full of shit, because she just said that none of her wounds were immediately fatal. So that baby would have been laying there agonizing, unable to breathe, lungs collapsed, blood in her chest, air in her chest, unable to catch her breath for an agonizing couple of minutes, which we know if you just sit there and attempt to hold your breath for 2 minutes, how long that would be, or even just sit in silence for 2 minutes, how long that actually is. So this crazed maniac that will one day be back out on the streets was swinging that sword and never caused any immediate fatality to this girl. So she had to lay there. So when that, he's a character. But when that defense attorney said, y'all didn't hear her scream. First of all, I scream over a paper cut. So all them cuts all over her palms and stuff, I'm sure she started screaming then. But that also means why would you get cut on your palms unless you were trying to block? But from all those cuts that you did down to her passing away, you sat there and watched her go for at least 2 minutes and kept cutting. Went back and cut some more. Like, what kind of sick ass shit were you doing? And you gonna sit up there and say, oh, well, I didn't know. I didn't hear anything. Them 2 minutes, she was probably at least moaning, because that's all that would come out. But it took 2 minutes for her to go. So how much was you swinging on this girl? Or did you come back and finish? 30 years ain't enough.
Yes.
Okay. And you rely on their test results as part of your expertise, or
Us-
informing expert opinions.
Yes, us and other medical examiners across the country.
So what specimens were analyzed and what, if any, positive results came through?
Ms. Jennings, we sent her blood and urine to this laboratory for testing. They did not detect any common drugs or alcohol in her blood at the time of death. They did detect cannabinoids, which is similar to marijuana in the lay term, in her urine only. So that was not present in her blood, but it was present in her urine.
What does the fact that it was present in her urine but not her blood tell you?
It means that that substance would have had no effect on her at the time of her death because it was not circulating in her body. She had used cannabinoids at some point, and it was now just sitting in her urine as it had passed through her body, her kidneys.
So in other words, Grace would have been sober at the time of death. Is that fair?
Yeah. Yes, there was nothing detected in her blood.
I wish she wasn't. Golly.
Dr. Helmrich, we've talked about photos taken in the course of this case. Have you had the opportunity to review some of the photos from your case today?
Yes.
Okay. And again, once those photos are taken during time of the autopsy, contemporaneously with the autopsy, are they edited or altered in any way prior to being uploaded to your system?
No.
And then shared with the state or the parties?
Correct.
This poor jury. Now they got to look at these photos.
82.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness? I just showed it to defense.
Yes.
Dr. Helmrich, I'm going to approach you with what's been marked as State's Exhibit 82. Do you recognize what I'm holding in my hand?
Yes, I do.
And what is State's Exhibit 82?
This is a disc that I had reviewed the photos of yesterday and signed my name and dated the disc myself.
And do you recall approximately how many photographs are on this disc of State's 82?
I don't recall. It was less than 100.
Okay.
Yes, more than 10, less than 100.
Does 24 sound about right?
Yes, it does.
Okay. And what are the photographs that are on this disc?
These are photographs taken at the time of Miss Jennings' autopsy.
And do these photographs fairly and accurately depict Grace's body as it appeared during the time of autopsy?
Yes, they did.
Your Honor, at this time, I'd move to admit State's 82.
Any objection to 82?
Nothing further, Your Honor.
82 is admitted. Counsel, approach before
Yes,
you
please.
publish, if that's what you're going to do next.
I'd like to talk a little bit about time of death. Are you able to form an opinion, well, first, what does it mean for someone to be pronounced dead and the pronounced time of death as it relates to your office?
The official pronounced time of death is very rarely ever the actual time that a person dies in the context of cases that we investigate at my office. It is simply the time that our investigator pronounced the person deceased at the scene. So they may have died sometime before, but then our investigator takes time to get there and pronounce. So it is usually delayed after the actual time of death.
So what is the date and time of her pronounced time of death, understanding that that's not when Grace actually died?
Yes, so referring to my report, Ms. Jennings was pronounced on October 29th, 2022 at 10:15 p.m.
And that would reflect when the Office of the Medical Investigator, arrived at the scene and pronounced her himself.
Exactly.
Are you able to offer an opinion as to the actual time of her death, when that would have occurred when that would have occurred?
Unfortunately, there's not a scientific way that I can do that accurately. Ms. Jennings did not have any changes of decomposition of her body, so she had not died days before, but I can't scientifically say an exact time that she had died.
Thank you. Your Honor, at this time, I'd move to publish States 82.
Ladies and gentlemen in the gallery, the photographs that are about to be published are graphic in nature. So if you believe you'll have any difficulty viewing these, now is the appropriate time to leave. And then you can come back into the courtroom once we go through this part of the hearing. Okay, Ms. Murphy.
Your Honor. If I may just get a little bit of tech support to play them off the drive so they're not slow to load. Is it here? I'll let you do it. So, Your Honor, the same images that are contained on 82 are contained and numbered the exact same way on states or on the state's drive. I'm looking at them now and have verified that they're the same. I'm just going to place 82 over here. And I should have asked before I admitted, you stated that these are a fair and accurate depiction of the way she looked after death. Have Grace's genitals and nipples been blurred in these photos?
Yes.
So let's start with image 1 of 24. All right. What can we see in image 1?
Here we're looking at Miss Jennings' body after her clothing has been removed and her body has been washed. We have our OMI designator label beneath her belly button. And we can see that she has multiple sharp force injuries on her neck, her shoulders, and her chest.
Are these injuries later designated using like evidence markers that corresponded to your category of injury that you broke them down?
Yes, they're designated by the alphabetical letters.
Let's go to image 2. What can we see in image 2?
This is Miss Jennings after we have washed her body, and we can see again multiple sharp force injuries on the back of her head, the back of her neck, and her back.
Those will be designated with evidence markers as well.
Yes.
And image 3.
We're looking at Miss Jennings, the front of the lower part of her legs and her feet, and we can see one incised wound on the front of her right knee.
All right. Image 4, what can we see and what has been added to this image by you or your office?
Now we are viewing her neck, some of her neck injuries closer up. We have added the letter designators to each injury that we had discussed earlier.
And I see injury A, that designation, and you've determined that that is a postmortem injury?
Yes,
Okay. Injury B, down below that, and that one you designated as postmortem?
yes,
Okay. And please correct me if I get that wrong on my notes.
sure.
We can see below that D. And you designated that as postmortem?
Yes,
And E is visible as well?
yes,
And I believe you testified that E, or at least part of E, has a wound track that corresponds to the back, which would be L. Is that correct?
yes. The part of E that is designated to the wound on the back is the wound we're seeing just above the letter E label.
And then the subsequent one below, is that visible in a different photo?
Yes.
Okay, let's go to image 5. What can we see in image 5?
Here we're looking at the left side of Miss Jennings' neck and her upper chest. We can still see wound D that we just looked at, but now we can also see wound C on the left upper part of her neck at the jawline. That's a stab wound.
And that stab wound, is
Just
your opinion
Drake,
that was
yep,
either
right again.
postmortem or close in time to death? Or
Yes, exactly. This wound did not occur while her heart was fully pumping.
there are some other injuries that are visible in this. I think we can see G and I. Are there other images that depict those better, or would you like to speak to those now?
I believe there may be other images that show those better.
All right, let's go to image 6. What can you see in image 6?
Here we can again see stab wounds C and D on Miss Jennings' neck that we just discussed. We can also see wound G. That is a very small wound that is connected to a larger wound on the right upper part of her back. We can also see 2 wounds designated by the letter F on the front of her chest. The upper wound of F connected to a wound on her upper back. The lower wound of F ended in her tissues. It did not exit her body.
And her nipples have been blurred out in this photo. Is that correct?
No,
Yes.
this ain't
And you
fair.
talked about
Don't
G having a coordinating wound track. That would be
Sorry,
M.
your music.
The
That extra.
Enters on the back.
Exactly. G is where a sharp object came out of her body from another location on her back where it entered.
Going to image 7, what is depicted in image 7?
Here we're looking at the front part of Miss Jennings' left shoulder where it meets our left upper chest. These are the 2 stab wounds designated E. The upper wound above the label is associated with a wound on her left upper back. The wound to the right of both labels, just above her armpit, that entered into her left chest cavity and caused an injury to her left lung.
And I believe you stated that E had that coordinating track to wound L. Is there a close-up of L on her back that you're aware of?
Yes.
Go to image 8. Is that L?
Yes, L connects inside of her body to E on the front of her left shoulder.
Thank you. All right, going to image 9. What can we see in image 9?
Here we can again see stab wound D on the bottom of her neck. We can see that exit sharp force injury G on the front of her right armpit. And then we can also again see the 2 stab wounds F. And again, that upper one is associated with a defect on her back, and the lower one just goes into her tissues.
And the coordinating defect on the back that corresponded would be N as in November.
Yes.
Going to image 10, what can you see in this photo?
Here we're looking at Miss Jennings' back, specifically the right side of her back, and we can see multiple stab wounds on the upper middle part of her back to the left of the letter M. We can see that wound that is associated with the small wound G on the front of her right shoulder. That sharp object entered as M and exited as G. We can also see N on the right upper back, the wound to the left of that label N, that is associated, connects inside the body to one of those stab wounds on the front of her chest, designated F. And then we can also see O, that's located on her lower back. O is 3 stab wounds very close together that entered her abdomen.
Okay, going to image 11, what can we see here?
What we're looking at in this photograph is the front of the chest. So after we make a Y incision, we have a rib cage that encases our lungs and protects our lungs. We have to take that rib cage off to see the lungs. And so that is the front of the rib cage after we have removed that from Miss Jennings' body. On this rib cage, which is the front of her chest, we can see multiple injuries caused by her stab wounds. Yeah.
Can you please just identify the general location for those stab wounds?
Correct. So the left portion of this tissue is actually the front right portion of Miss Jennings' chest. The left side of this photo, the right side of this photo would be her left side of her chest. And so we can see a large hole on the front that is associated with that upper stab wound F that then connected to that injury on her right upper back N. We can also see bleeding on the surface. That would be the right lower surface of her chest cavity, her chest wall, and that has bleeding there. So that suggests to me that she likely had some blood pressure while she sustained that wound. That's that second stab wound, F, in the group of 2. We also have a third injury here. This is on the right side of the image. There is a hole in her chest wall, and that is associated with that second stab wound E that was on the front of her left shoulder.
Thank you. Let's go to image 12, excuse me.
Here we're looking at the front right shoulder of Miss Jennings' body. And we can again see that wound G that is associated with that defect on her upper back. This is where a sharp injury came out of her body. And then we also have a small wound H that's on her right arm. It's possible that those two are connected. If something came out of G and then continued onward to poke her skin H, that's a possibility.
So like if her right arm was kind of across her chest or something.
That could be one possibility, yeah.
Thank you. Let's go to image 13.
Here we're looking at just a close-up photograph of stab wound D before her body has been cleaned, and this is that stab wound of her lower neck that occurred after she had died.
Image 14.
Here we're looking at the front, the palm of Miss Jennings' left hand. In this photo, we can see multiple cuts spanning across her index, middle, and ring fingers on the front of her left hand. These happened while she was alive. She also has a cut at the base of her thumb that we can see.
I can see that her hand appears bloody. Is this before the cleanup process of the autopsy?
Correct.
Image 15.
Here we're looking at a cut on the front of Miss Jennings' right knee.
And you stated that this one would not have been fatal, and you're not able to definitively say if this was pre or post-mortem?
Correct to both of those things, yes.
16.
Here we're now looking at Miss Jennings' back. Again, we're focusing on the left side of her back, and we can see again that wound M on her upper back that had entered here as M and exited as G on the front of her right shoulder. We also have another wound we have not seen yet. That is wound P. So just to the right of that label with the letter P is a very small, almost a puncture wound of her skin that did not damage anything other than her skin. And then we can also see a little bit of L on her left back. The label's cut off by this photo, but on the back of her left shoulder is L that is associated with that front E wound on the front of her shoulder.
Above P, we can see a partial injury. Is that injury depicted better in subsequent photos?
Yes.
Okay. What do we see in image 17?
In 17, we can see another injury now. This is wound Q. We're looking at the top of Miss Jennings' left shoulder. And this was just a very small cut that only injured her skin.
Image 18, can you orient the jury to where we are on Grace's body and then what you can see in image 18?
We're looking at the lower right side of Miss Jennings' body. So her head and shoulders would be above this photo. Her legs and feet would be below this photo. Her back is on the left side of the photo, and then her belly is on the right side of the photo. So she's on a table face down, and we're looking at the right side of her body, specifically her hip and her belly.
And what evidence label do we see?
Here we have wound R. To the right of that label is a stab wound. This is the wound that injured her diaphragm and her liver.
This looks like a relatively small wound. Is it a significant wound?
Yes, this damaged her liver. And so, right, this may have been one of the wounds she sustained while she was still alive because she had blood in her abdominal cavity.
And I just clicked to image 19. Is this a close-up of R?
Yes.
Now let's go to image 20. What can we see here?
Here we're looking at Miss Jennings' liver after it has been removed from her body, and we can see a large cut on her liver. That is associated with that stab wound R we just saw on the right side of her belly.
How deep into Grace's body would this have had to, did the wound go, or the implement that created the wound go in order to make this injury?
It would have to have traveled at least through the fat that we have on our bellies, as well as through the tissues of that breathing muscle and the liver tissue itself. So it was pretty deep, yeah.
Going to image 21 of 24, what can we see here?
Here we're looking at the back of Miss Jennings' head. We're looking at the left back of her head, and we can see multiple injuries on her head and neck.
Okay, can you please speak with the jury about injury S as in Sierra?
So S is on Miss Jennings' scalp behind her left ear. That's a slice or a cut that favors most likely postmortem. There was not as much bleeding into this tissue as I would expect for a person if they were alive when they sustained that.
And we can see that Ms. Jennings' hair has been shaved. You stated that the Office of the Medical Investigator did that?
Yes, the pathologist, Dr. DePasquale, under my supervision, did that. We have to shave the hair of individuals to see injuries and classify injuries, so that's part of our autopsy.
This injury almost looks like it has a hook shape. Can you explain why it's not a hook shape?
So there's a very small piece of skin that's attaching together, almost like a bridge of skin between two pieces of skin. And it can be seen if skin is sliced, but not sliced all the way through. So there's still a small attachment at the bottom.
So the blade would have gone kind of along the side of her scalp and underneath that flap we kind of see.
That could certainly explain that, yeah.
Going to image 22.
Here we're looking at another slice or cut that occurred after Miss Jennings had died. This is on the back of her neck, mostly involving the right back of her neck.
23.
We can again see wound S, that right behind her right ear. And I believe I misspoke. I apologize. S is on the left side of her head. T is on the right. So S on the left, T on the right, and then we have P, that very small wound that's on her upper back that just injured her skin.
And T would have been inflicted after she was deceased.
Yes.
Are you able to say whether the injury to T would be inflicted with one swing or more than one swing or slice or stabs of an object? Are you able to multiple attempts in that area or offer any opinion on the number of stabs or slashes or swings?
It's possible it was just one, and it's possible it was more.
Going to image 24, our final image.
Here we can see again that wound T we just discussed on the back of her neck, mostly on the right back of her neck. We can see a new wound U. That's another slice on her right scalp above her right ear. And then we can also see a stab wound under her right jawline. All of these wounds happened after she had died.
Thank you. We can turn off those photos. Given the depth of the and the penetrating nature of the injuries that Grace sustained, are you able to offer an opinion as to whether these injuries are consistent with the use of a long blade, such as the sword?
Specifically, the wounds that both entered and exited her body, that would have had to have been a long blade to sustain those. The other stab wounds that only entered her body, it can be difficult to say. Wound R that was on her right body into her liver, that would have been a longer blade. I can say that for that one.
Thank you. Are you able to offer an opinion on the amount of time that it would take an individual to inflict, or individuals, a person or persons, to inflict this number of injuries, given the distribution and multitude of directions?
It would not be immediate. That's what I can say.
And you said it would have taken minutes from the onset of the fatal injuries for her to have been deceased.
Yes.
Would the injuries to her lungs have made it difficult or impossible to talk or yell?
Not necessarily. It would have made it difficult for her to breathe.
And you stated that your opinion as to cause and manner of death is what?
Cause of death is sharp force injuries and manner of death is homicide.
A moment, Your Honor.
Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Helmrich. Your Honor, I'll pass the witness. As I gather my things. May I return the questions?
Yes. How is everyone in the jury box doing? Do we need a break or are you ready to continue? We'll continue then. We'll have a cross-examination. Counsel, please come up.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, Doctor.
Hi.
I just wanted do you guys mind if I close this?
No.
You had said you testified about 40 times?
Yes.
Are those all here in New Mexico?
One time was in Arizona, but the rest have been in New Mexico. Yeah.
And going back to what year, if you remember?
I'm not sure I understand the question. Oh, since I've been tracking,
Yes.
I would say probably around 2020 would have been the first time I had a jury trial.
Okay.
Or hearing. Yeah.
Gotcha. So this won't take me long. Again, Miss Murphy has to do the hard part, and so I'll get you through this pretty quickly. There's a couple areas I want to cover. First, it sounds like there was 7 wounds total on the head and neck. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
And 10 on the torso?
I would have to refresh my
Please do.
recollection.
And
Thank
please
you.
do.
There were 9 wounds on the torso.
And then it sounds like 1 on the right arm.
Yes, if we're not counting the right shoulder, 1 on the right arm. Yes.
Okay, when you say not counting the 1 on the shoulder, is that part of the torso? Are you counting, is it part of the 9 on the torso?
I do, yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so, and then 2 on the hands, 1 on each hand?
There's multiple ways we can count those,
Okay.
right? So we can count the multiple slices across the fingers as 1 wound, or we could count them as 3. But if we're counting the slice across multiple fingers, she had, as 1 wound, she had 7 total incised wounds on her hands.
That's
Both hands.
both hands?
Yeah.
And then the 1 on her knee?
Yes.
Right? Okay, so 14, 9, 23. 7. So 31 total. That's my math.
Let me do my math.
This is sick. Hey, didn't they? This is sick.
I'm getting 27.
27 to 31, okay. We'll go with your math, 27.
Sounds good.
And together, all of these wounds are lethal. So if they were all inflicted at the same time, that entire infliction would probably cause her death in and of itself.
Well, certainly some of the wounds on their own could have caused her death by themselves, but yes, generally speaking, when things are occurring at, may be occurring at the same time, we lump them together as a cause of death.
Okay. And we'll go through the ones that could in and of themselves cause death. You kind of did, but we'll just recover those. Let's just do that now. How about wound C? Could wound C have been lethal in and of itself?
Sir, what are you trying to do?
That's one of the wounds that occurred after she had died. So no.
But if that wound would have occurred to her before pre-mortem, could that have killed her?
So hypothetically, if that wound happened while she was alive, which it did not, that one could have caused death on its own.
And wound D, could that have been lethal in and of itself as well?
Yes, but again, that happened after she died, but that one certainly would have caused her death.
Okay. And that one went into the neck about 2.5 inches, right?
Yes. Let me double check that.
I think you used centimeters. I had to do a conversion.
Yes, I am not familiar with the conversion without a calculator, but 6.1 centimeters was how deep that was.
And the unlabeled wound that's on the left shoulder, that to me, after your direct testimony, sounds like it's actually one of the 2 E's. Is that right?
Exactly. E is a group of 2 stab wounds. So when I testified, I said both of those were E. Yes.
Right. Yeah. And the one that's on lower, could that one have been fatal in and of itself?
If it happened while she was alive, yes.
And you had testified that wounds F and N are connected in the body.
Yes.
Kind of like a blade may have gone through to connect them.
Yes.
But in this instance, am I understanding that you can't tell the entrance and the exit part?
Exactly. For that wound, I cannot say where a sharp object entered or exited. It's not like a gunshot wound where I can determine entrance and exit. Sharp force injuries are not that way. Yeah.
So with gunshot wounds, the bullet travels through the body and it brings tissue with it, right?
No.
Well, okay, so it makes the tissue point in a certain direction as it's traveling through the body?
No.
So how can you tell with a bullet?
The features on the skin surrounding the wound, a bullet will scrape the skin as it goes in. So if there's a scrape on the skin, I can say that's an entrance usually. And if it comes out, it will not scrape the skin. So that's how I know it's an exit for a bullet.
So you have kind of an indention and then an explosion on the other side. Is that what you're saying? More or less.
Sure.
Okay, and you can't tell just with this one.
Correct. There's a blade entering a body can be bigger where it enters, or it can be bigger where it exits. There's no way to say.
So let me ask your opinion. Did a blade go through her body at that point? Whether it was back to front or front to back, it doesn't matter.
Yes, talking about wound F to N, that's the wound on her front chest and then her right upper back. A sharp object traveled through her body.
And do you know, she looks a little thin in the pictures. And in fact, I think in your report, she was 56 kilograms.
She was about 111 pounds.
111 pounds.
Jesus.
And how tall is she?
Around 5 feet 9 inches.
Oh my God.
I think you indicated, or was it Dr. Pasquale
Hold the hell up.
who did the original report?
Dr. Di Pasquale performed the examination,
D. Pasquale.
wrote the report. I reviewed and certainly edited the report, and I signed the report.
Okay.
Yes.
In the report, it indicates, there's an indication that Miss Jennings is underweight.
She was underweight, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And was there a measurement taken of how thick her abdomen actually is?
No, that's not a measurement that we routinely take from the exam.
Okay, so, but it had to be a long blade to get through that entire body.
Yes.
Now, wounds GNM, it sounds like you could determine the entrance and exit on that.
I could only because one of those wounds was so small, almost like a puncture wound. It would be impossible for there to be a puncture and then a large wound if it
Oh,
enters through a puncture. That'd be highly unlikely.
Keep doing it.
Gotcha, okay. And, but that is a through and through.
Yes, it
And
is.
so that, it's hard for me to tell, well, what direction? Did it go up or down or left or right or both?
So the wound that we're referring to is wound M on the upper back that exited out the front right shoulder as G. That was back to front and left to right. I don't believe there was significant upwards or downwards.
Okay, that's pretty long travel area, left to right,
Yes.
all the way from the left side of her body to the right side of her body is where it kind of came out.
Well, the entry point was on the middle of her back,
Okay,
but the exit point was on her right shoulder. So that's still left to right.
and it's still quite a long wound track.
Yes, it traveled through her body.
Yeah. Okay. And then the wounds that are labeled, oh, well, let me go back to GNM. Was that one of the ones that in and of itself could be fatal?
Yes.
And then with regard to the wounds that are labeled O, am I to understand that there's 3 stab wounds there?
Yes.
And could any of those been fatal in and of themselves, or would it require all 3?
So it could have been all 3, but wound O may have caused death in and of itself. It would not have been a quick death. That would have taken some time.
Okay, and what part of the body was that?
Those stab wounds were on her lower back, and they traveled through her left lower ribs and made a small cut on her spleen. And then there was associated bleeding in the tissues near her spleen.
And then wound R, sounds like it was on the hip, kind of, the entrance.
Above her hip on the right side of her belly.
And that one could have been fatal in and of itself?
That's possible, yes.
Okay, so to me, it seems like there's about 7 that could have been fatal in and of themselves if they were done before she died.
The ones we discussed, yes.
Yes, okay. And you had talked about in categories I and J, that those are possible defensive wounds.
I don't believe I said that, but they are cuts on her hands.
Okay,
Yes, they
could
are.
they be defensive wounds?
They could.
And could you describe to the jury what a defensive wound is?
A defensive wound is a wound that's sustained while a person is trying to defend themselves against an attacker.
And so how do they get the wound when they're trying to defend themselves?
So hypothetically, in a scenario where a person is being attacked by a sharp object, the person may put their hands up to try to block that sharp object from touching other parts of their body. They may try to grab that sharp object to stop it from entering their body. Those are a couple possibilities.
Okay, thank you. And the wounds that traveled across her fingers, which hand was that?
Both hands.
Both hands, so you think that could be from grabbing a blade?
I cannot make any determination about her behaviors because I only examined her after death, but that's possible that a person trying to grab a blade could get that. That's one of many possibilities.
Okay. And just to be clear, I'm not going to ask you to act on her or to give me an opinion on her behavior or anybody else's behavior.
Perfect.
I'll just stay away from that.
Thank you.
So given the amount of what these wounds that you are classifying as possibly defensive, given the amount of them that there are, could that indicate a pretty serious struggle?
That's asking me to make an inference on behavior.
Is it? Okay. I apologize for that. Let me try to think of a way to put it so it doesn't involve behavior. Could that indicate a rapidly escalating chaotic scene?
Objection, Your Honor, calls for speculation.
Well, she's an expert. I think she can speculate.
It's just Is the question within your expertise?
Why does whether
It's
or not
still asking me to comment on behavior. Chaos is a behavior, in my opinion.
Okay.
Yeah.
How about an escalating situation?
I
Still,
cannot make any comment about the circumstances leading up to her death in terms of behaviors.
okay.
Yeah.
All right. You had talked about shooting a few minutes ago, and I'm guessing you've done quite a few shooting cases, right?
Yes.
And in those types of cases, you're able to give different distances, right?
Sometimes.
Okay, what types of distances can you give in shooting cases?
Objection, Your Honor, relevance.
Your Honor, it's relevant because I want to compare it to what's going on here.
Approach the bench.
I don't understand his line of questioning. Why are you even touching this? It's not a who done it. We know who did it. You should be focusing on the part that none of this in what she's saying says that he said he told her to do it. So why are we even focusing on this? I'm just wasting time. Oh, maybe Keisha. Maybe that's what he's doing. I mean, but she's not going to speak to anyone's demeanor or action. So talk to Kiera about that. Ain't like you ain't going to have the killer on the
Thank you.
stand.
Well, let's just talk about incise wounds. In order for a person to inflict an incise wound on another person, they got to be close to them.
Not necessarily.
It depends on how long the blade is.
That's one of the variables.
What other variables are there?
If I throw a knife at another person from a distance, I could inflict an incised wound.
With this many wounds, do you think a person would have to be close?
It certainly could be consistent with close contact, this many wounds, yes.
Okay, thank you. Now, with regard to, when you were talking about blood pressure earlier, that was a nice analogy, by the way, with the faucet and being the heart.
Thank
and
you.
I never thought of it that way, and that works good. But With regard to Miss Jennings, when she came into y'all's custody, when she got into the lab, there was still blood on her body, right?
Yes,
And there was still blood in her cavity.
a little bit, yes.
So it would be fair to say that she was probably bleeding at some point in time during this attack.
Yes,
Okay. And since she's bleeding at some point in time during that attack, then that faucet's on, right?
correct.
So
To
there's-
bleed, you have to have a pressure,
Okay,
yes.
so there is pressure. And that pressure can cause blood to come out of the body at a rate that's higher than just gravity.
It depends on what's injured.
Okay, but blood can come out.
Yes, if a large blood vessel is injured, it can. It doesn't always, but it's possible.
And you saw the pictures, the blood came out, right?
I saw that there's blood at the scene.
Okay. And so you saw that there's blood at the scene, so you don't talk to anybody else about whose blood it was or where the blood was found. You just know there was a lot of blood there.
I didn't say a lot of blood, but yes, there
I'm
is
sorry.
blood at the scene. And I saw that from the photos, and I did not speak with anybody about the amount
Okay.
in terms of law enforcement or anything like that.
Thank you for correcting me.
Yeah.
You're catching me. I'm not trying to put words in your mouth. Okay?
I don't think you are either. I
Okay.
just want to be accurate.
All right. And I appreciate the accuracy. It shows you're a scientist. Okay, so she could be bleeding. That blood could have got on somebody's clothing, right?
Possible, yes, sure.
Okay. Okay, we talked a few minutes ago about her height and her weight and that she might have been a little bit underweight. So just let me ask you this straightforward. Is it hard for you to tell how much force it would take to cause these types of injuries?
It's impossible for me to do that, yes.
Okay. And what are some of the factors that makes it impossible? Or all of them?
Because I'm examining a person after they have died, I'm viewing everything stationary with no movement. So I don't know how strong anybody is. I don't know the position that the decedent is in when they sustain the injuries. I don't know how long it took them to sustain the injuries. All of these are variables in determining that.
Okay, but based on just size alone of a person that you're looking at, if you have a bodybuilder, would it be harder to inflict these types of wounds on a bodybuilder than it would on Ms. Jennings?
Not necessarily. For example, if the bodybuilder's intoxicated, or like I can think of other variables that would make that not necessarily true.
Come on.
Ms. Jennings wasn't intoxicated in this case.
She wasn't.
Now, with regard to the wound that was on the back of her neck, you had stated that it was possible that it was more than one, I guess, incise wound. Was that the word used? I don't want to use the wrong word. I was going to say,
It is an incised wound, yes.
okay, so it's possible that it was more than one incise wound on that?
Correct. It's impossible for me to say if two cuts or two slices are made in the same area. It would look the same to me on my exam. So that's why I said that.
Okay.
Yes.
And then, okay. I just want to, I'm going to ask you a couple of these questions that you get all the time. So with regard to the 5 types of manners of death in New Mexico, what are they again?
Natural, accident, suicide, homicide, undetermined.
Okay. And homicide is not a legal conclusion, right?
Correct.
It's just the manner of death.
It's a medical opinion.
Okay.
Yes,
I just wanted to clear that up, and I'm sure you get that all the time.
I do.
Okay. And then you get these questions about force and direction all the time, right?
Yes,
And that's because it's not your job to work with the investigators to find this stuff out, right?
correct. My job is to determine the cause and manner of death.
Yeah, you're the boss as far as the cause and manner of death goes.
Legally, yes.
So you don't get these questions until you get into court like this, and you have attorneys like me asking you these crazy questions, right?
Sure, yeah.
Okay. So I apologize if I'm going all over the place, but that's just kind of the nature of the job.
I understand.
And with regard to the fingernail clippings, it sounds like Miss Jennings came in with some bags on her hands.
She did.
Can you explain to the jury why?
When our investigator goes to a scene of a death, brown paper bags, like a sandwich bag that we put a sandwich in for lunch, those bags are placed over a person's hands and then taped at the wrists. That is to preserve any possible evidence that may be on the hands so that doesn't get lost during transport.
And do you know who trains the people to bag the hands?
I do.
You do? How often do you do it?
No, I do know who does it.
Oh. Who does it?
We have a supervisor of investigations, and we also have a field supervisor of investigations. That would have been that person.
Okay. And when you received Miss Jennings over at OMI, did those bags seem to be applied properly?
I don't recall that they weren't.
Okay.
Yeah,
You would have noted it on your report if they weren't?
I would have, yes.
Okay. And then, so why do you take fingernail clippings?
It's part of our routine evidence collection that we do on any possible homicide, and it's just what law enforcement, what we have historically done to send to law enforcement.
Okay. And do you know what law enforcement does with it?
They look for DNA of another person on the fingernails of the deceased individual.
And do you know how that DNA might get there?
Contact.
Okay. What do you mean by contact of the fingernail on the other person?
Or contact of the other person on the fingernail. Yeah,
Either
those
way.
two things touched. Yeah.
Okay. Your Honor, I just need a second if I may. Doctor, I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 26. I don't know if you can tell. Okay, I got to back this out a little bit. I don't want to mess this up on the head.
There's a scroll wheel on top of the camera.
Oh, right there where it says Zoom. Okay, cool. All right. Okay, again, this is State's Exhibit 26, and as you can see, this is backwards, so it's gonna be a little bit difficult for me. Right here, does this look like a scratch to you?
I won't comment on injuries on individuals I did not examine myself.
Okay, if it was a scratch, we'll just speak hypothetically, if this was a scratch
Sir.
and you were looking for, or you clipped fingernails from a person in order to find DNA from this person, is that why you would do that?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
She is an expert, she can answer a hypothetical.
Relevant to her admission as an expert.
Okay, the fingerprint, oh, as a friend, okay. The fingernails are used to determine if there's DNA underneath them, correct?
That's my understanding,
Okay.
but I'm not involved in the testing of them.
Okay. And
Yes,
All right,
yeah.
and it could come from scratches, skin to skin, or fingernail to skin contact.
That's a reason. Yes,
Okay.
yes.
And just real quick, I was curious about the liver wound. That was a pretty big incise wound that went there.
I would say so.
Did it hit the hepatic nerve? Is that why it's
The
possibly fatal?
So we have nerves all along
I
the
mean, I'm
out.
sorry, the hepatic artery,
It did not hit the hepatic artery.
Okay.
Yes.
but it was deep enough to cause a fatality?
Right. Our liver can bleed, and it also, that same wound also injured her diaphragm.
Okay. And how many post-mortem wounds were there total?
I will have to refer to my report to
Please.
count that correctly for you.
Thank you.
So all of the wounds on her head and neck were postmortem. So that included the 4 slices, one on the right side of her head, one on the left side of her head, one on her back, the back of her neck, and then she had another slice on her right upper neck. Those 4 slices were after she died. She also had 3 stab wounds on her neck, one on her left jawline, one on her bottom, and then one on her right at the mid neck. Those 3 stab wounds were postmortem. So that's 7 total injuries postmortem on her head and neck. Any of the wounds on her torso could have happened while she was alive.
Okay. And you had testified during your direct testimony that it might take a couple of minutes for her to die?
It would have taken at least a couple minutes to die. Yes.
Okay. Sometimes a couple of minutes means 4, sometimes it means 2. Can you give us your definition of a couple?
I can't because I don't know and I don't want to say the wrong thing. We can't take 100 people and give them these stab wounds and start a timer and see how long it takes to die. We make our best guesses off of what's injured, and a couple minutes is the best I can give you.
But it's plural minutes?
Yes, I do believe it would have taken more than 1 minute for her to die.
Okay.
Yeah.
Your Honor, do you mind if we run 30 seconds off the clock?
Objection, Your Honor.
Do you want to approach on this, sir?
Yes. Objection sustained. Counsel, move on.
Thank you, Your Honor. Okay, so let me narrow it down then. A couple minutes to die, and then 7 wounds after that couple minutes.
After her heart stopped beating,
Okay.
yes. Yeah.
I have a couple of, and I apologize, I have a couple of random questions here that I wrote down. Which one of the wounds was back to front? That was G and,
M on the
G.
back,
okay,
G on the right front shoulder.
all right. And was there any that you could determine that were front to back?
All of the other perforating wounds, I could not give a direction. That one was an exception, again, because of how very small that one wound was.
Okay. I have just a second, Your Honor.
Yes.
Based on your training, acknowledge, are you able to quantify the amount of blood Grace may have lost? Or is that possible?
No, I was not at the scene.
Okay. And like you would have to be at the scene, period. You can't guess how much blood a body of that size may be holding and how much is missing, and you don't weigh it.
There's no way for me to do that. No, even if I had gone to the scene, to be honest. Yeah, I can't quantitate based off a puddle.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Doctor.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. No further questions, Your Honor.
Redirect.
Very briefly, Judge. Just picking up where defense just left off. In the scene photos, you see blood up on the kind of top back part of the bed. Do you recall seeing that?
I saw spots of fluid there. Yeah, without being there, I can't confirm that's blood, but yes, I did see that.
A red brown substance that could be consistent with blood.
Yes.
And then did you see pictures of where Grace's body was discovered and then what was underneath Grace's body after her body was removed?
I did.
Okay. And was there a kind of a puddle of a red brown substance that could be consistent with blood there?
There was a puddle of blood under her, yes.
Are you able to say whether that blood that was underneath Grace's body could be consistent with seepage after she had died? As opposed to active bleeding while alive or dying?
I can't. I don't have that training to interpret blood patterns. There wasn't anything that looked like spray from like a large artery open wound. But again, I did not go to the scene. I'm not trained to determine anything other than that. Yeah.
And then we saw in the beginning of Grace's autopsy photos that her body is somewhat contorted. Do you know what I mean by that? There's some limbs that are kind of bent.
Yes.
Are you able to draw any conclusions on the positioning in which she would have died?
No.
Okay. Could those body contortions just be related to how her body was positioned after she was deceased and then remained until OMI removed her?
Objection leading, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Can you explain I'll rephrase, Your Honor. Can you explain why Grace's body could appear contorted in those beginning autopsy photos?
Just to be clear, are you referring to photos taken at the time of autopsy?
I am.
That could be due to a process called rigor mortis or stiffening of the muscles after death. That can keep some things bent or flexed after death.
So based on that, are you able to opine or offer an opinion as to her body positioning at time of death at all?
Not,
Objection, Your Honor. She's not qualified for this.
I'm asking if she can offer that opinion.
I'm objecting.
The objection sustained.
And your opinion was that it would take a couple of minutes to die and the postmortem injuries would not have been immediate. Is that correct?
are you asking if the postmortem injuries would have been immediate to inflict? That would have taken, right, that would not have been instant to do that, no.
Nothing further, Your Honor. We'll reserve this witness out of an abundance of caution.
Okay. You're being held in reserve, so don't discuss your testimony with any other witnesses. Don't seek out any other information about the case. The attorneys will stay in touch with you to let you know if you need to come back to testify.
I understand, thank you.
You may step down. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take our noon break. I have a hearing at 1:15, so I'm going to ask you to come back at 1:30. Where do you want to meet them? Okay, same place as this morning on the second floor on the northeast corner by the big windows. And Angel will meet you there. Again, leave your notes with the bailiff. Don't speak to anyone about the case. Don't seek out any information about the case during our lunch recess. We're in recess.
All rise.
Oh, that's 2 hours. I'm sorry. Oh,
He stay with a hearing, don't he? You the only judge there? Dear God.
All right, counsel, if you'd be back at a quarter after, we'll open up the doors and let you in. Anything you leave in here is going to be locked in during the lunch hour. So if you need your laptops or anything else, take them with you now.
Did you say?
Not you been saying it wrong. All right, guys. So that is it for this morning. They'll be back at 1:30 p.m. Mountain Time. So that'll be 3:30 p.m. Eastern Standard. So we'll be back then for the rest of day 3. And all we found out today is Kiara is an evil 6 son of a something and her mama's crazy. And there's no way they didn't hear Grace. At one point, I was kind of holding out hope that maybe that first blow would have completely taken her out, silenced her, immediate cause, and then the rest was just personal. But to find out that out of, what did they say, about 27 slices, none of them were immediately fatal. This was just pure torture. This was just pure fucking torture. And they heard that woman screaming. I don't care what nobody says. They heard screaming. Somebody heard screaming. All right, guys. See you in an hour and a half. What is it? It's 11 o'clock my time. So be back at 12:30. All righty. See you in a minute. 3:30 Eastern. 12:30 on my side of things.